Hello everyone, and welcome to Dead Time Stories. Tonight, the storm outside isn't the only thing brewing. True tales so chilling they'll make your skin crawl, yet so mesmerizing you won't be able to turn away. But here's the twist. That distant thunder isn't just atmosphere. It's the key to unlocking your deepest sleep. So before you drift off, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, let's get comfortable, relax, and dive into tonight's story. The rain had been falling all evening, drumming steady on Daniel's windshield as he guided his car down the narrow country road. Branches, swollen with water, sagged overhead like a tunnel, and his headlights glanced off their slick, black limbs. His phone, resting uselessly in the console, had lost signal miles back. The GPS arrow still pointed forward, frozen, as if urging him into a place he shouldn't go. When he finally saw the mailbox, he nearly missed it. Rusted, leaning, its numbers half worn away. Behind it, weeds and gravel formed a drive that looked less like a road and more like a forgotten scar in the earth. A crooked wooden sign leaned in the shadows, its letters just legible in the beam of his headlights: Stillwater Lane. The house at the end of the lane emerged from the storm like something left behind by time. Its peaked roof loomed above tangled trees, and every window stared black into the night. The porch sagged. The steps seemed tired of holding weight. For a moment Daniel thought he saw the flicker of a candle in one of the upstairs rooms, a faint glow weaving past the glass. But the next flash of lightning showed only emptiness. He killed the engine, the silence around him instantly heavier than the rain. His shoes sank into the gravel as he stepped out. With the envelope in his jacket pocket, and the old brass key inside it, he reminded himself, it's just house sitting. Just a favor. Nothing more. The key turned too easily. The door yielded with a sigh, like the house had been waiting. Inside, the smell was sharp and strange: damp wood, mildew, and something sweet and sour, like fruit rotting on a shelf. Lightning flared again, illuminating the staircase at the end of the hall. For an instant, he thought he saw someone standing at the top, their head cocked, watching him. Then thunder rolled. The dark returned. The landing was empty. From upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Slow. Heavy. Like a footstep. Daniel's hand tightened around his phone, its weak flashlight beam trembling in the dark. The creak overhead had been unmistakable. Too solid, too intentional to dismiss as settling wood. He swallowed and whispered into the silence. Hello? Someone there? No answer. The sound of rain pattered faintly against the roof, but the house itself was too still. He took a step toward the staircase. The floor beneath his shoes sighed in protest. He climbed slowly, one step at a time, each tread groaning as if announcing his ascent to whatever was waiting above. Halfway up, the smell hit him stronger, a sweet, sickly note, like fruit gone to rot. At the landing, his light cut across the hallway. The wallpaper was peeling, a faded floral pattern curling back to reveal dark wood beneath. The hall stretched in both directions, lined with doors, some shut, others cracked open, like mouths waiting to whisper. The second creak came from the far end. Daniel froze, flashlight raised. One of the doors, barely ajar, shifted a fraction more, the sound drawn out, as though a careful hand was pushing it open inch by inch. Who's there? He tried again, his voice firmer this time, though his throat was dry. For a moment, only silence. Then, a low sound, like a sigh, drifted down the hall. Not words. Not wind. A human sound, too soft and weary to belong in an empty house. Daniel's chest tightened. Look, he said, forcing calm into his voice. I don't know who's in here, but I'm supposed to be staying. So if this is a squatter or a prank... The words trailed off. Lightning flashed outside, filling the hall with white light. For a split second, Daniel saw the walls lined with children's drawings, pinned up with rusted tacks. Stick figures stood beneath black skies, their faces empty circles. Houses were drawn with no windows, no doors. In one picture, a black shape hunched above a row of stick people, arms stretched long, curling like smoke. Thunder cracked. The hall was dark again. Daniel's phone vibrated in his hand. He nearly dropped it. But when he looked, no signal, no alerts. Just the faint hum of static from the speaker, a whispering crackle like breath against the microphone. From the end of the hall, the doors swung open a little wider. Hinges moaned. And this time, he thought he heard a child's voice. Faint. Fragile. Calling from the dark. "Help me!" Daniel froze, the faint voice curling down the hallway like smoke. He wasn't sure if he'd imagined it. The sound had been so soft, as if carried on breath rather than spoken aloud. "Help me!" The words echoed in his chest long after the silence swallowed them. He tightened his grip on the phone. Its light jittered across the walls, catching on more of those drawings. One showed stick figures inside a house. Over them loomed another figure, much larger, drawn in frantic black lines that pressed so hard into the paper they nearly tore it. Daniel cleared his throat. "Hello?" he called, softer this time, almost afraid to raise his voice. "Is someone here? A kid?" Nothing. Just the ticking creak of the house as rain pressed against the roof. He glanced back at the staircase. His bag was still sitting downstairs, the car parked outside, freedom only a few steps away. He could leave. Pretend the whole thing never happened. Call the relative who sent him here and say the house was unfit. That he wasn't staying. But something in the voice, thin, breaking, stuck in him. It hadn't sounded like a trick. It had sounded desperate. Daniel stepped forward. His shoes pressed into the stained carpet runner, muffling his steps. The door at the end of the hall remained slightly ajar, waiting. He reached out, his hand trembling, and pushed it open. The flashlight beam cut across the room. It was a child's bedroom. The wallpaper was faded blue with outlines of clouds, peeling at the corners. A small wooden bed sat crooked in the middle of the floor, the mattress sunken, sheets yellowed with age. Toys were scattered across the floor, a doll missing an arm, a wooden truck with a broken wheel, a puzzle with half its pieces gone. Daniel's throat tightened. The air here was colder, heavier. He whispered again. "Hello?" A soft thump answered, from beneath the bed. He crouched, raising the light lower. The beam fell across dust, old springs, the shadowed space beneath the mattress. His breath caught, because for just an instant, he swore he saw a pale hand retreat into the dark. Then his phone flickered. The screen blinked alive, though there was no signal, no apps, just white text appearing against the black. "Don't look." The light went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Daniel's phone screen went dead, the glow snuffed out as if something had pressed its thumb over the light. He sat frozen, crouched near the bed, his ears straining. The silence was unbearable. Not empty silence, but thick, expectant, like the house itself was listening for him to move. Then, faintly, came the whisper again. So close it raised goose flesh along his arms. "Help me!" Daniel's throat was dry. "Who are you?" His own voice sounded foreign in the dark, too loud. "What's wrong?" The mattress above him shifted with a low groan. A weight pressed down, bending the springs. He jerked back, stumbling to his feet. His flashlight flared suddenly back to life, weak but steady, cutting through the gloom. The bed was empty. The sheets lay flat and untouched. Daniel's chest heaved. Look, if you're hiding, it's okay. I won't hurt you." His words quivered, almost pleading. He crouched again, raising the light to peer beneath the bed once more. Dust. Springs. Darkness. And then eyes. Two pale orbs gleamed from the shadows, unblinking, reflecting his weak light. They were too far back, too low, not the eyes of a child but something crouched, twisted, holding itself small. The eyes blinked once, and vanished. Daniel lurched away, his shoulder colliding with the doorframe. The flashlight sputtered but held. His breath came sharp, ragged. "No," he whispered, shaking his head. No, I didn't." The sound of laughter cut him off. Soft. Giggling. A child's laugh, but hollow, distant, echoing as if it came from the walls themselves. It rippled down the hall, bouncing from room to room, impossible to pin down. "Stop it!" Daniel shouted, his voice cracking. The laugh faded into silence. He stumbled back into the hall, heart pounding. The drawings on the wall seemed closer now, the faces more frantic, the black shapes darker. One page fluttered though no window was open, as if stirred by unseen breath. From the staircase below came a sudden knock. 3 sharp raps on the front door. Daniel froze. Someone else was here. The sound echoed through the house, 3 firm knocks, sharp and deliberate, vibrating through the wood. Daniel stood motionless in the upstairs hallway, the beam of his flashlight quivering across peeling wallpaper. For a long moment, nothing followed. No voice. No movement. Just the sound of rain whispering against the roof. His first instinct was relief. Maybe someone had come looking for him, maybe a neighbor, maybe even a sheriff's deputy. His car parked in the drive might have drawn attention. He swallowed hard, trying to quiet his racing heart, and called out, "Hello?" His voice carried down the stairs and was swallowed by the dark. No answer. Another 3 knocks. Slower this time. Daniel tightened his grip on the phone, forcing his feet to move. Each step down the hall groaned under him as if protesting. He avoided looking at the child's room as he passed. The door had swung shut on its own. The staircase yawned below him, shadows stretching up like arms. He descended, the air growing colder with each step. When he reached the bottom, he saw the faint outline of the front door. Lightning flash, briefly illuminating the foyer. And Daniel's stomach lurched, because the shape on the other side of the glass wasn't a man. It was small, narrow, a figure barely reaching the doorknob. Its head tilted, hair stringy and wet against the glass. He caught only a glimpse before the thunder rolled and the dark returned, but it was enough to freeze him where he stood. The knocking stopped. Daniel's breath trembled out. He whispered to himself, "Just a trick. Just a trick of the light." Then, so sudden he flinched, the doorknob rattled violently. Metal scraped against metal as if something on the other side was clawing at it, desperate to come in. Daniel staggered back, heart hammering. "Stop it!" he yelled, voice breaking. The rattling ceased instantly. Silence again. And then, clear as a whisper pressed right against his ear, though the door was 10 feet away, came a child's voice, wet and broken, seeping into the room. "Let me in." Daniel's skin crawled. The voice hadn't come from outside the door. It had been inside, curling past his ear like someone had leaned close enough to touch him. He spun, light sweeping across the foyer, heart drumming in his throat. No one was there. The knob rattled again, gentler this time, almost playful. Daniel's breath came shallow, each inhale loud in the silence. "I'm not opening it," he said, though his voice quavered. "I don't care who you are." Another flash of lightning lit the glass. The small figure still lingered beyond it, blurred by rain. The head lolled sideways, hair plastered flat. But in the brief illumination, Daniel saw the hand pressed against the pane. Tiny. Pale. Fingers too long. Thunder cracked. The shadow was gone. Daniel backed away, shaking his head. No. No, no, no. His hand fumbled for the lock, testing it. Still latched. Still in place. Yet unease coiled in him. That key had turned too easily when he first arrived. Too willingly. What if the house hadn't really locked at all? He stumbled into the parlor, desperate to put walls between himself and the door. The furniture was draped in yellowing sheets, each shape hunched like a ghost waiting to rise. He pulled one down, coughing as dust billowed up. A moth fluttered free, wings brushing his face before disappearing into the rafters. A fireplace sat cold at the far end of the room, its grate half-eaten by rust. On the mantel, framed photographs gathered dust. Daniel raised his light to them. Families stared back, sepia faces, stiff and unsmiling. In one photo, children sat neatly in a row, their eyes blurred as if smudged out by a thumb. Another showed a man and woman in formal dress, their features sharp, severe. The last frame was cracked. Inside, a picture of the house itself, newly built, its paint fresh, its windows clean. But Daniel's stomach tightened as he leaned closer. In the upper window, barely visible, was a face. Small, pale, watching. The same window where he thought he'd seen the candlelight when he first arrived. Daniel's hands trembled as he set the cracked frame back on the mantel. His flashlight beam jittered across the photos again, unwilling to linger yet unable to look away. He whispered aloud, as if speaking would ground him. Old family pictures. Just old pictures. But the excuse rang hollow. The blurred eyes, the faint figure in the upstairs window. It was too pointed, too deliberate. The floor creaked behind him. Daniel whipped around, light cutting across the parlor. The sheets covering furniture barely stirred, though none should have moved. One chair looked as though it had shifted slightly closer to the hearth, angled toward him. He backed up until his calves hit the sofa. "I know you're here," he said, his voice stronger than he felt. "I don't know what game this is, but I'm not scared of you." The lie tasted bitter. His throat ached. Something brushed past his ankle. A flicker of cold, like icy fingers tracing skin. Daniel yelped, stumbling backward and sending the flashlight beam spinning wildly. The light caught on the floorboards, and for a second, he saw small, wet footprints leading from the front door into the room. Tiny bare feet, pressed into wood. His stomach lurched. He dropped to one knee, sweeping the light along the trail. The prints circled the room once, looping near the sofa, the chair, the mantel, before stopping at the center of the floor, where nothing stood. The footprints ended abruptly, the last pressed deep as though something had crouched there, waiting. Daniel rose quickly, sweat slicking his palms. "No," he whispered, shaking his head. "Not real. Just water, just shadows." The voice came again. This time from directly above, through the ceiling. "Help me." It stretched longer now, dragging like something tired, desperate. It wasn't a child's plea anymore. It was heavier, as if more than one voice had joined. Daniel's skin prickled. His eyes lifted to the ceiling, then to the staircase in the hall beyond. The sound had come from upstairs. From the locked rooms he hadn't opened yet. Daniel's legs felt heavy as he crossed the parlor and stepped back into the hall. The voice still echoed faintly, as if the house itself repeated it. "Help me, help me." He forced himself up the stairs again, each groan of wood beneath his shoes louder than the last. At the top, the hallway stretched before him like a throat lined with doors. He raised the flashlight, its circle of light trembling over peeling wallpaper and yellowed drawings. The first door he tried was locked. The knob turned just enough to taunt him before refusing. He rattled it once, the sound too loud in the stillness, then stopped. His breath fogged in the cold air, though no draft stirred. "All right," he muttered under his breath, though his voice was a rasp. "Let's see." He moved to the next. Locked. The third gave slightly, its hinges groaning. He pressed harder, and with a reluctant shudder, it opened a few inches. The smell hit him first, sour, moldy, like damp earth mixed with old metal. Inside, the beams swept across a narrow room. Wallpaper sagged in strips. A small dresser leaned against the wall, drawers half open. On top of it sat a box of crayons, their wrappers curled and brittle with age. The drawings pinned to the wall here were worse than the ones in the hall. They showed the same faceless figures, the same looming black shape. But these were frantic, scribbles gouged into the paper, lines overlapping until the page nearly tore. One showed a stick figure in a bed, another figure crouched beneath. Daniel's chest tightened. He whispered, "That's the—" A noise cut him off. Not from the room. From behind him. The soft creak of the child's bedroom door opening, slow, careful. Daniel spun, flashlight jerking toward the hall. The door he'd left shut now gaped an inch wide. His pulse hammered. He swallowed, forcing his voice to steady. "Who's there?" The answer came in the smallest voice, thin as paper. "You shouldn't be here." Daniel's flashlight beam cut down the hall, shaking as it landed on the half-open bedroom door. His heart hammered so loud he was sure the voice, whatever it belonged to, could hear it. "You shouldn't be here." The words were faint, yet they didn't fade like echoes. They lingered in the air, as if the walls themselves had absorbed them. Daniel's throat tightened. Who are you?" His voice cracked despite his effort to sound calm. The silence stretched. Then came a sound like fabric dragging across the floor. Slow, deliberate, coming from the child's bedroom. He took a step forward, his legs stiff. His phone's light skimmed over the carpet runner, catching the edges of more footprints, small, wet, and fresh. They trailed from the child's room into the hall. Daniel forced a shaky breath. "Listen, I don't want any trouble. If you're stuck in here, if you need help, just talk to me. I can help." A pause. Then the voice again, softer. "No one helps." Daniel swallowed hard, his mouth dry. His instincts screamed at him to run, to get in the car and drive until this house was nothing but a memory. But something heavier pinned him in place, something he couldn't explain, like the house itself wouldn't let him leave until he listened. He reached the bedroom door and pushed it wider. The hinges moaned. His light swept inside. The bed sat crooked, sheets untouched. The toys lay where he'd seen them earlier. But now, the walls were covered. Every inch of wallpaper was hidden beneath drawings. Hundreds of them, layered and overlapping. Crayon marks dug deep into paper. Faceless figures filled the room, over and over, stick limbs reaching, heads blank. And in every picture, looming above them, was that same black mass, long arms, stretching wider each time, as if it had grown with each drawing. Daniel stepped inside without realizing it. His voice was barely a whisper. What happened here?" Behind him, the door clicked shut. "We did." The voice was right at his back. Daniel froze. The whisper brushed against his neck, too close, too real. His breath stuttered out, and he turned slowly, the flashlight trembling in his grip. The room behind him was empty. The door was shut tight, though he hadn't touched it. His hand went to the knob, but it wouldn't turn. The metal was cold, biting against his skin, as if it had been sitting in ice. "Open," he muttered, twisting harder. The knob resisted. Then came the sound again, a child's laugh. High-pitched, broken, echoing as if from deep inside the walls. Daniel spun, light jerking wildly across the drawings, the bed, the floor. Nothing. The laugh turned into a sob. Then another voice joined. And another. A chorus of children, rising and falling, some crying, some giggling, all too close. Daniel pressed his back to the door, his chest heaving. "Stop it!" he shouted, though it only made the voices louder. "Stop it, please!" The flashlight flickered. When it steadied, the drawings on the wall seemed different. The black mass in them wasn't static anymore. It had stretched further, its long limbs wrapping around the stick-figure children, pulling them close. In the center of one drawing, a stick figure had been scribbled darker than the rest. Heavy strokes gouged the page. The figure was smaller, surrounded, engulfed. Daniel's breath caught. His voice cracked when he whispered, "Is that you?" The voices stopped. For a moment, silence pressed in thick as fog. Then, from beneath the bed, something moved, slow, dragging, like nails across wood. Daniel crouched without thinking, lowering the beam. A face stared back. It was pale, damp, eyes too large for the small head, mouth open as if mid-plea. It blinked once, then whispered in a chorus of overlapping voices, all layered into one. "Help us!" Daniel staggered back, slamming against the door. The flashlight slipped in his hand. When the beam cut across the floor again, the face was gone. Only darkness remained beneath the bed. Daniel's fingers clawed at the doorknob. His chest rose and fell in ragged bursts, the echo of those overlapping voices still scraping inside his skull. "Open, damn it!" he hissed. The knob resisted, icy and stiff. Then, with a sudden snap, it turned. The door yawned open into the hallway, and Daniel stumbled out, nearly falling onto the carpet runner. He slammed the door shut behind him and pressed his back against it. His flashlight beam jittered across the hall. The drawings pinned there seemed closer now, their stick figures leaning toward him as though watching. He forced himself to breathe. "I'm leaving," he muttered, as if the words could anchor him. "That's it. I'm done." The staircase waited at the end of the hall, dark and narrow. He moved quickly, his shoes sinking into the faded carpet. Every step he took made the house groan as if reluctant to let him go. Halfway down the stairs, the air shifted. Cold, sharp, like walking into a freezer. Daniel slowed, his breath visible in the beam of his light. A whisper slid up the stairs from the foyer below. Not the voice of a child this time. Deeper. Rough, as though dragged over broken glass. "Stay." Daniel froze, his throat tight. The word pulsed through the air, vibrating in the walls. "I'm not staying," he said aloud, though his voice shook. "I don't belong here." Another whisper followed, this one curling just behind his ear. "You do now." Daniel's knees buckled. He twisted, shining the light upward toward the hall he'd just left. For an instant, he swore he saw the pale child's face peering from the crack beneath the closed door. Just the eyes, watching. He turned back toward the foyer. The front door stood open. Rain poured in, pattering against the warped wooden floor. Lightning illuminated the threshold. Beyond it, only darkness, too thick, too unnatural. He should have seen the driveway, the trees, his car. Instead, it looked like a void swallowing the world outside. Daniel's breath caught. The open door wasn't an escape. It was an invitation. Daniel stood frozen on the stairs, his light trembling over the yawning black doorway. Rain hissed at the edges, but beyond the threshold was no storm, no driveway, just void. A wall of darkness that felt alive, waiting. His pulse hammered in his ears. Every instinct screamed at him to shut the door. But his legs moved on their own, carrying him down the last few steps. He whispered as he walked, the words tumbling out like a prayer. "It's not real. It's not real. It's not." The cold grew sharper, biting into his skin. When he reached the foyer, he stopped inches from the open door. The void stretched before him, thick as tar, swallowing even the rain. His flashlight beam dissolved inside it, unable to pierce more than a foot past the frame. Something shifted in the dark. Not seen, but felt, like a ripple through water. "Come," a voice murmured. Not the child. Not the gravelly whisper from the stairs. This was layered, dozens of tones braided together, old and young, male and female. A chorus. Daniel's hand trembled on the edge of the door. One step, and he would vanish into whatever waited there. His stomach twisted at the thought, bile rising in his throat. "No," he croaked, jerking his hand back. "No. I'm not going in there." The house groaned as if in protest. The air tightened. From upstairs came a heavy thud, like furniture dragged across the floor. Then another. Louder. Closer. Daniel slammed the door shut. The darkness disappeared instantly, replaced by the ordinary storm outside. Rain lashed against the windows, lightning flashing across the glass. His chest heaved with relief, until he realized. The door hadn't latched. It hung loose, the lock clicking weakly as though it no longer fit. The thuds above grew into pounding. Something, or many things, were moving across the upstairs hall, rushing from room to room. Then silence. Daniel's flashlight beam swept the ceiling. Plaster dust drifted down, shaken loose by the vibrations. He whispered, "What do you want from me?" The answer came from directly behind him, so close he felt breath brush his ear. "We want you to stay." Daniel spun, flashlight jerking wildly across the foyer. The beam caught only furniture shrouded in sheets, dust motes swirling like ash. No one stood behind him. No one could have whispered. Yet the words still clung to his ear. "We want you to stay." His breath came quick and shallow. "No," he muttered, shaking his head. "I don't belong here. I don't." The flashlight sputtered, dimming to a pale glow. In that weak circle of light, the footprints appeared again. Small, wet, pressing into the warped floorboards. They came from the staircase, dozens of them, spreading out across the foyer. Daniel's stomach lurched. The prints weren't just from one child. There were many. The sound of giggling rose softly, weaving through the rain. High voices, playful, echoing around him though no mouths made the sound. It swelled until the foyer seemed crowded with unseen children, their laughter circling like wolves. Daniel backed toward the parlor, his voice breaking. "Stay away from me." The laughter ceased. Every sheet covering the furniture collapsed inward at once, as if the shapes beneath had suddenly stood. The fabric sagged flat to the floor. Dust billowed, choking Daniel's throat. He coughed, swinging the flashlight. The photographs on the mantel rattled. One fell and shattered. Lightning flared through the windows. For a split second, Daniel saw them, children standing in the corners of the room, pale and wet, their eyes too dark, their faces too still. When the thunder rolled, they were gone. The broken frame lay at his feet. He forced himself to look. It wasn't the photograph he'd seen before. Not the house, not the family. Now the glass protected a different image, a faded print of Daniel himself, standing on the porch of Stillwater Lane. The photo was old, edges curled, as though it had been waiting decades. His voice trembled out of him. "That's not possible." From the stairs above, all at once, the chorus of voices rose. Not whispers this time. Shouts. "Stay." The voices crashed over him like a wave, rattling the walls. "Stay. Stay. Stay." Daniel clamped his hands over his ears, but the command vibrated in his bones, louder than thunder. He bolted. His shoes skidded on the warped boards as he lunged for the front door. It still hung loose, rain hissing against the threshold. He yanked it open wide and ran into the storm. Cold water lashed his face. Wind tore at his clothes. Relief surged in his chest, until he looked up. The driveway was gone. Where gravel should have stretched toward the trees, there was only black water. An endless expanse, rippling under lightning flashes. The trees, the road, his car, swallowed. The house stood on an island surrounded by shifting dark waves. Daniel staggered back. "No. No, this isn't real!" His voice was nearly stolen by the wind. He edged toward where the car should have been, his shoes sinking into wet grass. The water lapped higher, greedy, swallowing ground with each swell. From the surface rose bubbles. Then pale shapes, small hands breaching the waves. Children's faces surfaced, eyes open, mouths gasping silently. Dozens of them, watching him, water streaming from their hair and noses. Daniel screamed and stumbled back toward the porch. One hand broke the surface near his ankle, clutching his shoe with icy fingers. He kicked free, heart pounding, and scrambled up the steps. He spun toward the door, only to see it slowly closing, as if the house itself had decided it was done waiting. "No!" He threw himself at it, shoving hard. The wood resisted. For an awful second he thought it would slam shut and leave him outside with the black water and the grasping hands. But the door groaned and gave way, spilling him back into the foyer. He collapsed onto the floorboards, gasping. Rain dripped from his clothes, pooling around him. Behind, the doors shut gently, sealing out the storm. Inside, all was silent again. Too silent. Daniel lifted his head. The footprints hadn't disappeared. There were more now, circling him in the dust. And every one of them pointed inward. Toward him. Daniel stared at the ring of footprints. Each was sharp, wet, pressed deep into the floorboards as though invisible children had gathered close while he lay gasping. His throat worked, but no words came. The house groaned above him, timbers shifting, a sound like breath held too long and finally released. The air grew thick, pressing against his chest. The flashlight flickered, dimmed, then steadied again, but weaker, like a candle nearly burned out. "I don't belong here," Daniel whispered, forcing the words into the stillness. "You hear me?" "I don't." The chorus rose in answer, not shouted this time, but whispered from every wall, every corner, seeping into his skin. "You do now." Daniel staggered to his feet, sweeping the light across the foyer. The photographs had changed again. Where stiff sepia faces once stared, there were now newer images, recent color prints. Him. Driving. Eating at a cafe. Standing at his apartment window. Candid shots, as though someone had been following him for months, maybe years. No. His voice cracked. How do you have these? He grabbed one frame and hurled it to the ground. The glass shattered, but beneath, the photograph hadn't torn. It clung stubbornly to the frame, as if part of the house itself. The laughter returned, higher, shrill, darting from corner to corner. The giggling of children circling him in the dark. Daniel's light caught the parlor doorway, and his chest froze. Figures stood there. Small, pale shapes. 4, maybe 5 of them. Their heads tilted, wet hair clinging to faces too white, too thin. He lifted the flashlight higher, heart in his throat. The beam passed over their eyes, black pits, bottomless, reflecting nothing. Their mouths opened in unison. Stay. Daniel stumbled backward, colliding with the staircase. His hand slid along the banister, desperate for an anchor. His breath came ragged, shallow. What happens if I don't? He shouted, the words torn from him. The answer came not from the children, but from the house itself. Every wall groaned, every beam shuddered, the sound vibrating through the floor beneath his feet. You'll drown. Daniel froze at the word. Drown. It echoed in the marrow of his bones, heavier than thunder, more final than any threat he had ever heard. Then came the sound, dripping. He lowered the flashlight. Water seeped between the floorboards at his feet, black and oily. It welled up in slow beads at first, then faster, forming puddles that spread across the foyer. No, Daniel whispered, staggering back up a step on the staircase. No, no, no. The water rose steadily, swallowing the photographs shattered on the floor. The images bled, colors running like veins into the black pool. Faces dissolved until only blank, pale ovals floated on the surface. The children in the parlor doorway stepped forward, each barefoot. Their toes pressed into the water, ripples stretching outward. But they did not sink. They walked atop the black surface as though it were solid. Daniel's pulse thundered in his ears. His legs trembled as he backed further up the staircase. The water climbed higher, licking at the baseboards, sloshing against the furniture. The sheets covering chairs and tables grew dark, heavy, collapsing into the rising pool. Stop it! Daniel shouted, his voice breaking. I don't belong here. I didn't do anything to you. One child tilted its head. When it spoke, its voice was layered with many others, a choir of broken whispers. You came. Daniel's stomach twisted. His mind reeled back to the letter, the shaky handwriting, the vague invitation. A relative's request, he thought. A family favor. But now he wondered if it had been something else. The house groaned deeply, a sound like the hull of a sinking ship. The staircase trembled beneath his feet. He gripped the railing tighter. The water reached the second step. The children were closer now, black eyes reflecting nothing, their pale faces fixed on him. Daniel lifted the flashlight higher. If you want me, he rasped, you're going to have to take me. The chorus answered, rolling through the house like a tide. We will. And with that, the water surged upward, racing up the stairs toward him. The water rushed up the stairs with unnatural speed, sloshing against the railing, black as oil. Daniel turned and bolted, heart hammering in his throat. His shoes slapped against the steps, splashing as the rising flood snapped at his heels. He burst onto the second-floor landing, nearly slipping on the soaked carpet runner. The hall stretched long and dim, doors yawning like mouths waiting to swallow him whole. Behind him, the flood climbed higher, each step groaning as the water pressed upward. Daniel sprinted for the nearest door. He threw his shoulder into it, it held locked. He cursed and moved to the next, twisting the knob until his palm burned. This one gave, swinging inward with a groan. He stumbled inside and slammed it shut, chest heaving. His flashlight beam trembled across the room. It was a nursery. The walls were painted pale yellow, faded and peeling. A crib sat in the corner, its bars cracked, one side sagging. A rocking chair rested near the window, its cushions moth-eaten, fabric split. Dolls lay scattered across the floor, their porcelain faces cracked, glassy eyes staring. Daniel pressed his back to the door, trying to quiet his ragged breathing. He listened. The pounding of the flood against the stairs had slowed, muffled. The water hadn't reached this room, yet. But something else had. The rocking chair shifted. Slowly. Back. Forth. The wood creaked with each motion. Daniel raised the light, hand shaking. The chair rocked gently, though no one sat in it. The window behind it rattled with the storm, streaks of rain cutting down the glass. Then one of the dolls moved. Its head rolled toward him, eyes glinting in the beam. Another tipped onto its side, arm twitching as though nudged by an unseen hand. The rocking chair stilled. From the crib came a sound. Soft. Wet. A baby's cry, muffled like it was bubbling up through water. Daniel's chest tightened. He whispered, "No. No, no, no." The cry grew louder, filling the nursery. Dolls shifted across the floor, scraping against wood as they turned toward him one by one. And then, clear as day, a child's voice rose from the crib. "Why didn't you save us?" Daniel's stomach twisted as the words rippled through the nursery. "Why didn't you save us?" His flashlight trembled toward the crib, its beam cutting across the peeling yellow walls and cracked bars. The wail shifted, no longer a baby's cry. It warped into something older, rougher, like a chorus of children crying through waterlogged throats. His voice broke as he whispered, "Save you? I don't even know you." The dolls scraped again, inching closer, tiny limbs dragging against the warped floorboards. Their glassy eyes caught the light, reflecting it like shards. The crib rattled. Daniel forced one step forward, then another, heart thundering, until he stood over it. His hand shook so hard the light bounced wildly across the mattress. Something lay there. At first it looked like a bundle of soaked blankets, heavy and dark with water. Then the shape twitched. A small, pale hand slid free, fingers long, nails ragged. The blanket peeled back to reveal a face. Or rather, faces. Dozens of them, children's features pressed together in the same slick skin. Eyes blinked at odd angles, mouths gasped in unison, noses crooked and overlapping. Their voices layered into one, crying, laughing, whispering. "Save us!" Daniel reeled back, bow rising in his throat. "You're not real," he rasped, stumbling toward the door. "You're not real!" The bundle surged upward, limbs stretching in impossible directions, tiny hands reaching over the crib bars. The rocking chair tipped violently, slamming against the wall. Dolls toppled and skittered forward as though pushed. Daniel wrenched the door open and stumbled into the hall, slamming it behind him. His chest heaved. His legs felt weak, rubbery. The house answered with a deep groan. The floor vibrated under his shoes. From the stairwell, the sound of rushing water swelled again, louder, closer. The black flood was climbing. Daniel turned down the hall. The last door at the end, broad, heavier than the others, stood slightly ajar. Light leaked from the crack, flickering like a candle. And somewhere behind that door, a voice hummed softly. A lullaby. The humming drifted down the hall, low and sweet, a melody almost soothing against the chaos of the house. Almost. But beneath it was something off, notes that bent the wrong way, like a lullaby sung by someone who had forgotten how it should sound. Daniel's flashlight quivered over the runner as he stepped carefully toward the door. His shoes left wet prints in the carpet, the flood still chasing him from below. Every so often, the floor creaked as if shifting with his weight, though he barely moved. The closer he came, the clearer the voice grew. It wasn't a child this time. It was older. Female. Her tone carried both warmth and grief, the way a mother might sing at a bedside. He swallowed, throat dry. "Hello?" His voice cracked, uncertain. The humming stopped. For a breathless moment, silence ruled. Then the voice replied, soft as a sigh. "You're late." Daniel froze. His heart stumbled painfully against his ribs. Late for what? He managed. The voice didn't answer. Instead, the door at the end of the hall creaked wider, spilling more of its strange glow into the corridor. It wasn't candlelight after all. It was dimmer, more like embers smoldering low, shadows curling around it like smoke. Daniel's feet moved without permission, carrying him forward. The walls tightened around him, the drawings fluttering as though stirred by a draft he couldn't feel. Stick figures peeled halfway off their tacks, edges curling like they wanted to crawl free. He reached the door and nudged it with trembling fingers. It swung inward with ease. The room beyond was vast compared to the others, its ceiling higher, its air thicker. The glow came from a fireplace where no fire burned, only coals that pulsed faintly, alive with dull red heat. The smell of smoke and rot filled his lungs. And in a chair by the hearth sat a woman. Her back was to him, her hair long and dark, damp strands clinging to the fabric of her dress. She rocked slowly, the old wood moaning with each sway. "Who are you?" Daniel whispered. The rocking slowed. The woman's head tilted slightly, as though she'd been waiting for that question all along. The woman's rocking slowed to a stop. For a moment, she sat completely still, her damp hair veiling her face, her hands folded in her lap. The only sound was the faint hiss of the glowing coals, each ember pulsing like a slow heartbeat. Daniel's throat tightened. "Who are you?" he asked again, softer this time. Her shoulders rose and fell in a sigh. Then, without hurry, she turned her head. Daniel's breath caught. Her face was pale, but not corpse pale, more like something waterlogged, the skin swollen, soft, as if it had been submerged too long. Her eyes were wide, milky, yet focused on him with painful clarity. When she smiled, her lips split slightly, as though the skin remembered drowning. "You came," she whispered, her voice threaded with too many tones, like others whispered with her. "We were waiting." Daniel staggered back a step, his flashlight beam jerking across the walls. More drawings here, hundreds, layered until the paper nearly buried the wood. Some depicted children, some families, some only dark, sprawling masses that seemed to pulse when the light lingered. "I don't know what this is," Daniel rasped. "I don't know what you want from me." The woman's smile deepened, though her eyes glistened with something like grief. She rose slowly from the chair. Water dripped from her dress, splattering softly against the floorboards. "What we want," she said, stepping closer, "is what was taken." Daniel's pulse thundered. "Taken? By who?" She tilted her head. Her damp hair shifted, revealing a throat marked with deep purple bruises. When she spoke again, her voice trembled with anger, layered with the whispers of many. "By those who left us." The air grew heavier, pressing against Daniel's chest until he struggled for breath. The coals flared brighter, shadows lengthening, crawling up the walls like reaching arms. Daniel shook his head violently. "No. I don't belong to this. I don't belong to you." The woman stepped closer, her bare feet leaving no prints, her pale hand reaching toward his chest. "Oh," she whispered. "But you do." Daniel stumbled backward, but there was nowhere to go. The door had swung shut behind him without a sound. The woman's hand hovered inches from his chest, pale and dripping, the air around it colder than ice. "Don't," he rasped, raising the flashlight like a shield. "Don't touch me." Her milky eyes glistened as though she pitied him. Then her hand pressed flat against his sternum. Daniel gasped. The cold cut through him, sharp as broken glass. Images surged into his head, not his own, flooding him all at once. Children's faces, pale and screaming as water swallowed them. Tiny fists pounding against windows as black waves pressed in. A woman, this woman, holding them close, her mouth open in a soundless wail as the water covered her too. Daniel reeled. His knees buckled, but her hand held him upright, pinning him with the weight of her memory. He tried to pull away, but her grip was unyielding, stronger than iron. "Feel it," she whispered, voice breaking. "Feel what it was to be left behind." The flood in his head grew louder, rushing into his ears until he couldn't hear his own breath. He staggered, choking, certain water filled his lungs though the air was dry. Stop! He managed, gagging. Please stop! Her other hand cupped his cheek, cold enough to burn. You can't leave us, she murmured. Not when you carry us now. The visions snapped away as suddenly as they had come. Daniel collapsed to the floor, coughing, shoving himself backward on his hands until his spine hit the wall. His body shook with cold sweat. He raised the flashlight again, panting. Why me? He whispered. Why drag me into this? The woman tilted her head, water dripping from her jaw. Her answer was soft, almost tender. Because you opened the door. The coals in the hearth flared, shadows sprawling across the walls. The drawings seemed to writhe in the dim light, the black shapes within them stretching outward, reaching for him. Daniel pushed himself to his feet, swaying. No, he whispered. I didn't choose this. The woman smiled faintly, sadness curdling into hunger. You will. Daniel staggered sideways along the wall, desperate to keep distance between himself and the woman. The flashlight trembled in his grip, throwing frantic shadows across the drawings that seemed to stretch, bend, move. I'm not staying, he whispered, though the words sounded weak even to him. I'll find a way out. The woman's smile thinned. There is no out. The house groaned in agreement, a long, low shudder that rattled the floorboards beneath his shoes. Daniel lunged for the door, wrenching the knob with both hands. It refused to turn. He yanked harder, shoulder slamming into the wood until it shook on its hinges. But it didn't open. Behind him, the fireplace hissed. The coals brightened, casting the room in pulsing red light. Daniel whipped around just in time to see the shadows crawl higher across the walls. They reached the ceiling and spread outward, dripping like black oil, thickening until the room seemed to shrink. The woman stepped closer. Her bare feet left no sound, no prints, but the air grew heavier with each step. Daniel slammed his fist against the door. Let me out! The house answered. The walls shifted. He saw it, felt it, the boards breathing, bending, seams cracking as though the structure itself flexed. The door frame rippled under his hand. His stomach dropped as the hall beyond vanished, replaced by solid wall. No! His voice was hoarse, disbelieving. You can't! The woman's whisper cut him off, floating from just over his shoulder. We can! Daniel spun, swinging the flashlight wildly. The beam caught her face, pale, waterlogged, eyes glinting like dead pearls. She stood impossibly close, her lips curling in something not quite a smile. You opened the door, she said again, her words echoing in the shifting timbers. Now you keep it open for the rest. The floor buckled. With a violent crack, a board split near his feet. Black water welled up instantly, flooding across the planks. It rushed toward him like a living thing. Daniel scrambled back, his shoulders slamming against the sealed wall. The woman didn't move. She only watched, her hair dripping, her voice soft as the tide. Drown with us. The water gushed across the floorboards, black and thick, climbing fast. Daniel's shoes slipped as he bolted for the far side of the room, eyes fixed on the tall window beside the rocking chair. He threw the flashlight beam toward it. Rain streaked the glass, lightning flashing beyond, outside. The real outside. Or so it seemed. Daniel lunged, grabbing the warped frame, fumbling at the latch. It was rusted shut. He slammed his palm against it, then his shoulder. The glass rattled but held. Behind him, the water rose higher. It lapped at his calves, icy as death, dragging at his legs with invisible weight. He could feel it tugging, trying to pull him under though he was still above the surface. Open! He snarled, slamming his fist into the pane. Pain shot up his arm. Cracks spiderwebbed across the glass. He hit it again, harder. This time it shattered, shards scattering into the storm. Cold air rushed in, carrying the sting of rain. Daniel hoisted himself up, glass cutting at his hands, and shoved his head and shoulders through. Wind tore at him, soaking his clothes in seconds. Below was not the lawn, not the driveway. Only water. Endless black waves stretched in every direction, swallowing the trees, the road, the world. Lightning revealed pale faces breaking the surface, dozens of them, staring up at him with open mouths. "No!" Daniel gasped, pulling back instinctively. The window frame bit into his ribs as something icy clamped around his ankle. He looked down. The water inside the room was waist-deep now, and from it rose pale hands, countless, clawing at him. He kicked wildly, tearing free just as another hand latched onto his other leg. The pull was violent, jerking him downward. His chin slammed against the sill. Stars burst across his vision. The woman's voice floated above the roar of the storm, calm, patient. "You can't leave us! You are part of us now!" Daniel's grip on the window frame slipped as the water surged higher, swallowing his chest. The faces outside the house leaned closer, pressing against the broken glass, their mouths moving in unison. "Stay!" The water swallowed Daniel's chest, then his throat. His flashlight slipped from his hand, spinning once before vanishing into the dark flood. He clawed at the window frame, nails splitting against the wood, but the grip on his legs was relentless. "Let go!" he screamed, though the word bubbled and broke as the water surged over his mouth. Cold rushed into his lungs, burning, crushing. He kicked, thrashed, but the hands only tightened, pulling with inhuman strength. The room disappeared. There was no ceiling, no walls, only blackness. He was sinking deeper and deeper, the weight pressing against him from every side. His chest convulsed, desperate for air. Shapes drifted in the water. Small bodies floated past, hair streaming like seaweed. Children. Their eyes were wide, their mouths moving though no sound escaped. They reached for him, brushing his arms, his face. Some clung to him, their nails scratching into his skin. Daniel's scream tore through the water, useless. The woman appeared ahead of him, her hair spreading like ink in the current. Her pale hands lifted, and the children parted around her. Her lips moved slowly, words curling through the water though he should not have heard them. "You open the door." Daniel's lungs burned. His vision blurred, sparks dancing at the edges. He shook his head violently, bubbles erupting around him. "No. I won't die here. I won't." The woman drifted closer, her hands stretching toward his chest again. He felt her touch, cold, cutting straight through to his heart. And then light. Above him, faint but real, a shimmer glowed through the surface of the water. Not the ember glow of the house, not lightning, something cleaner, brighter. Daniel kicked with the last of his strength, clawing upward. Hands tried to hold him down, small and relentless, but he tore free, breaking through their grip. His chest screamed, lungs bursting. He stretched for the glow. At the last moment before darkness claimed him, his head broke the surface. Air ripped into his chest in a ragged gasp. He coughed violently, choking, blinking at the sudden glare. He wasn't in the nursery anymore. He was lying on a wooden floor, soaked and trembling, in a room he had never seen before. Daniel lay sprawled on the floor, his chest heaving as he dragged air into burning lungs. His clothes clung heavy with water, dripping into the warped boards beneath him. For a long moment he could only cough, his throat raw, ribs aching from the effort of breathing again. When he finally lifted his head, the flashlight was gone. Yet the room wasn't dark. A faint glow pulsed from the walls themselves. They weren't covered in wallpaper anymore, but would so blackened it seemed charred, as if the room had been burned long ago. Strange symbols were carved deep into the planks, looping and jagged, glowing faintly like embers smoldering beneath the surface. Daniel pushed himself upright, trembling. The room stretched wider than it should have, its corners lost in shadow. The air was thick, damp, carrying the metallic tang of rust and the sweet rot of decay. He whispered, "Where am I?" The house answered with silence. Then movement. A shuffling sound, faint, dragging across the boards somewhere in the dark. Daniel staggered to his feet, fists clenched, body screaming with exhaustion. "Stay back!" he shouted, though his voice cracked. From the gloom emerged shapes. Not children this time. Taller. Gaunt. Their limbs bent strangely, their heads drooping forward as if their necks couldn't hold the weight. They stepped slowly, bare feet slapping against the wet wood. Daniel's stomach lurched. Their faces were obscured, smeared as though blurred by water. He squinted, and realized they weren't strangers. They were him. Dozens of them, copies of himself, their faces distorted but recognizable. Some younger, some older, some gaunt with age, some fresh as he was now. Their mouths moved in unison, whispering words that barely rose above the creak of the boards. "You've always been here." Daniel shook his head violently, stumbling back until his shoulders struck the wall. "No," he rasped. "I just got here tonight. The doubles kept advancing, whispering, their voices growing clearer with every step. "You open the door. You open the door. You open the door." The chant rattled through the room, until the glow of the walls pulsed brighter, syncing with the rhythm of their words. Daniel clamped his hands over his ears, but the sound pressed inside him anyway, vibrating in his skull. And then, from the far corner, another voice joined, low, guttural, rising above the chorus. "You never left." Daniel's back scraped against the wall as the figures closed in. Each one was him, yet wrong. Their eyes sagged, their mouths slack, their bodies waterlogged like corpses left too long in a river. Some moved stiffly, others with jerking spasms as though pulled on strings. He shook his head, his voice ragged. "You're not me. You're not real." The nearest figure lifted its head. Its eyes were pale mirrors, blank and depthless. Its jaw cracked as it opened, spilling out words in his own voice, lower, slower, like it had been drowned. "You belong to us." Daniel pressed harder into the wall, his nails scraping the carved symbols that glowed faintly beneath his hands. The light pulsed stronger where he touched, as if feeding on his panic. The copies echoed again, a wave of voices all shaped like his. "You belong. You belong. You belong." One lurched forward. Its hand shot out, fingers splayed, nails blackened. Daniel flinched as it brushed his cheek. Cold spread instantly through his skin, numbing, seeping down into his jaw. He shoved the figure back with a hoarse yell. It toppled, striking the floor with a sickening splash, because it wasn't wood beneath, not anymore. It was water. The black flood seeped up again, spreading from the cracks in the boards, rising around his shoes. The reflection bodies didn't resist it. They sank willingly, their pale eyes never leaving him, their whispers bubbling as the water swallowed their mouths. Daniel staggered forward, splashing, heart hammering. "No! I'm not!" His voice cracked. "I'm not part of you!" The guttural voice from the far corner rumbled again, louder, shaking the floor. "You were always part of us." Daniel spun, squinting into the shadows. Something massive shifted there, taller than the rest. For an instant, lightning from nowhere flashed through the room, illuminating it. A figure loomed, rising out of the water. It was shaped like him, yes, but stretched, distorted, limbs far too long, face featureless except for a black pit where the mouth should be. Water poured endlessly from the hole, splashing down its chest. Daniel's breath caught, his body rooted in terror. The giant reflection lifted one hand and pointed at him, and every whispering voice answered as one. "Drown." Daniel staggered back as the towering reflection lurched forward. Its arms stretched impossibly long, joints bending backward with a sickening crack. Water poured from its faceless head, splashing into the rising flood that now churned around Daniel's knees. The smaller versions of himself bobbed in the dark water, their pale faces staring up. They chanted with bubbling voices, distorted but relentless. "Drown, drown, drown." Daniel's chest heaved. His hands clawed at the glowing symbols carved into the wall behind him, desperate for something, anything, that might break the spell. The carvings pulsed brighter where his fingers touched, burning hot against his skin. The giant's hand swung down, fingers splayed like claws. Daniel dove sideways, crashing into the flood. The icy water swallowed him to the chest. He gasped, thrashing back up, his arms flailing for purchase. The hand slammed into the spot he had stood, boards splintering, water surging higher from the wound. Daniel scrambled onto his knees, coughing, spitting water. "I won't drown here!" he screamed, his voice breaking. "Do you hear me? I won't! The reflection tilted its faceless head, water still gushing from its mouth hole. Its limbs dragged through the flood, sending waves crashing against the walls. With each step it took, the room shook, boards groaning as though they would collapse entirely. Daniel's eyes flicked wildly around the room. The glowing carvings, symbols etched into every wall, every beam, pulsed in rhythm with the flood. A thought clawed its way into his mind: they're feeding it. They're feeding this thing. He lunged forward, splashing through the water toward one of the symbols. With both fists he struck it. The glow flared, then sputtered. The reflection roared, a guttural sound that shook the room. The chant faltered. The drowned versions of himself hissed and writhed, sinking deeper into the water. Daniel struck the carving again, harder. It shattered like glass, splinters of red light scattering into the air before vanishing. The reflection stumbled, its arms swinging wildly, water gushing faster from its hollow mouth. Daniel's chest heaved as he turned toward another glowing mark. He waited, half running, half stumbling, as the water surged higher. His legs were heavy, numb. Behind him, the giant sloshed forward, every step a thunderous quake. Daniel raised his fist again, ready to smash the next symbol, when a hand shot up from the water, clamping around his wrist. It was his hand. The hand that clamped Daniel's wrist was identical to his own, same scar on the knuckle, same veins, same trembling fingers. It yanked downward with crushing strength, dragging him toward the black flood. Daniel shouted, thrashing, trying to wrench free. "Let go!" His voice cracked, swallowed by the water's roar. Another hand burst from the surface, seizing his other arm. Then another clamped around his ankle. All of them were his, dozens of reflections rising out of the flood to pull him under. Their faces broke the surface one by one, blurred, waterlogged versions of himself, whispering through mouths that poured water. "You can't fight us," they hissed in unison. "We are you." Daniel kicked wildly, his heel cracking against a face that split like wet paper, yet another hand replaced it instantly. He dragged himself forward inches at a time, teeth gritted, toward the glowing carving. The towering reflection loomed closer, its limbs sweeping arcs through the water. Each movement sent waves crashing, nearly toppling Daniel into the grip of his doubles. The hole in its face gushed black water endlessly, the sound like a river vomiting itself into the sea. Daniel screamed, every muscle straining. He slammed his shoulder against the wall, free hand clawing at the glowing symbol. The carvings burned against his skin, but he scraped harder, nails tearing as he dug at the wood. The chant of the reflections rose. "Drown! Drown! Drown!" He wrenched his arm up and slammed his fist against the mark. Once. Twice. A third time. The glow flickered, then cracked down the center like breaking stone. Red light spilled out, the symbol shattering in a flash. The flood recoiled violently. Hands slipped away, splashing back beneath the surface. The reflection copies wailed, their voices bubbling as they sank. The giant reeled back, arms flailing, the flood gushing from its hollow mouth in a torrent. Its faceless head tilted skyward, releasing a roar so deep it shook Daniel's bones. Daniel staggered free, chest heaving, his fists bleeding from torn skin. He pressed against the wall, eyes darting across the room. More glowing carvings. Dozens. The giant's head snapped back toward him. And every carving in the room flared brighter, pulsing like 100 beating hearts. Daniel's lungs burned as he pressed himself against the wall, the flood swirling around his waist. Every carved symbol pulsed brighter now, flaring in time with the giant's guttural roar. The walls themselves seemed alive, veins of red light crawling through the wood like blood through arteries. The towering reflection waded forward, each step slamming into the water like thunder. Its long arms scraped the ceiling beams, leaving black streaks wherever they touched. Daniel's chest tightened. He knew. He didn't know how he knew, but he knew. Those carvings fed it, tied it, kept this nightmare alive. If he could destroy them all, maybe he could weaken it. Maybe he could escape. His fists clenched, blood dripping from his torn knuckles. His voice cracked as he shouted into the roar. "If you want me, you'll have to fight me for every one of these." The reflection bellowed, a sound like the ocean grinding against rock. Daniel turned and smashed his fist into the next glowing mark. Pain seared up his arm, bone jarring against wood, but the carving cracked, sputtered, and went dark. The giant stumbled, its massive form flickering as if it were only half there. He waded through the flood, teeth clenched against the cold, and hammered the next symbol with his elbow. Light burst. The whispers rose louder, desperate, furious. Hands broke the surface of the water again, his own reflections, grabbing, clawing, their faces half dissolved. One latched onto his leg, pulling hard. Daniel roared and stomped down, crushing its face beneath his heel. "Not this time!" he shouted, his voice breaking with rage. Another carving glowed above the fireplace. Daniel shoved through the flood, climbed onto the slick mantel, and slammed his shoulder against it until the wood gave way. The symbol burst in a spray of red sparks. The giant shrieked, reeling, one arm collapsing into water like sludge. Its faceless head thrashed, spewing torrents that drenched the room. Daniel's chest heaved, sweat and blood mixing with the flood. He looked around wildly. Half the carvings still burned, the room alive with their glow. And in that light, he saw the woman again. She stood calmly in the corner, untouched by the chaos, her waterlogged hair dripping steadily into the flood. Her eyes gleamed with grief and fury both. "You can break the walls," she whispered, her voice carrying over the roar. "But the door will always remain." Daniel staggered down from the mantel, slipping into the flood that now lapped at his ribs. His muscles screamed, his fists raw and bleeding, but he forced himself toward the next glowing carving. The woman's words froze him. "The door will always remain." He whipped around, water splashing. "What door?" His voice was hoarse, desperate. "What are you talking about?" The woman stood serene, her drowned face glowing faintly in the pulse of the symbols. "The door you opened when you came here. The door that brought you into us." Her lips barely moved, but her voice carried like a hymn. Daniel's chest tightened. "The front door? You mean the house? I can shut it, I can." She shook her head slowly, droplets scattering from her hair. "Not that door. The one inside you." The flood surged higher, pressing against his chest, pulling him downward. The smaller reflections broke the surface again, their slack faces chanting with renewed strength. "You opened it! You opened it! You opened it!" Daniel pressed his hands to his skull, shaking his head violently. "No! I didn't open anything. I just came because of the letter." The woman's pale smile curved upward. "The letter was the key. You read it. You believed it. And in that belief, you opened the door." Lightning, impossible lightning, flashed across the ceiling beams. For a split second, Daniel saw the truth of her words carved into the wood itself. A door etched over and over, thousands of times, in every wall, every floorboard. Not a door in the house. A door in the mind. "No," his voice broke. "I didn't mean to." The towering reflection bellowed, regaining its footing. One of its arms regrew, surging back into shape, dripping black water. It raised the limb high, the flood churning around it. The woman's voice rose, carried by the whispers of countless others. "Once opened, the door cannot close. Not until you are inside with us." Daniel's stomach lurched. His eyes darted to the glowing carvings still burning along the walls. If he destroyed them, maybe the house itself would collapse. Maybe he could take the door with it. He sucked in a ragged breath, fists clenched. "Then I'll burn the whole house down." The woman only smiled wider, her eyes glistening like deep water. "That is exactly what it wants." Daniel's words hung in the air, swallowed quickly by the roar of the flood. The woman's faint smile didn't falter. If anything, it deepened, soft with a grief that felt too human. The towering reflection slammed its massive hand into the water, sending waves crashing against the walls. The glow of the carvings brightened in answer, pulsing violently like the heartbeat of some great creature. Daniel braced himself against the surge, shouting over the chaos. "If I take this place down, if I destroy every mark, you can't keep me here." The woman tilted her head. Destroying the house does not free you, Daniel. Her voice was gentle, almost motherly, even as the flood climbed higher. It only feeds the door. The fire you spark will open it wider, and then there will be no closing it. Daniel's chest heaved. His fist shook at his sides. You're lying. You're trying to scare me. But even as he said it, doubt gnawed at him. He remembered the way the first symbol shattered, the way the giant faltered, but the flood surged harder afterward. Had he been weakening it, or feeding it? The smaller reflections broke the surface around him, their ruined mouths chanting. Burn! 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 The giant's faceless head tilted, and for a terrible instant Daniel thought it was smiling. The woman drifted closer, her waterlogged dress trailing in the flood. We are not your enemy, she whispered. We are what waits on the other side. What you let in. You cannot fight us without becoming us. Daniel's heart hammered. He wanted to deny her, to scream, but her words twisted inside him like hooks. What if she was right? What if every blow he struck only made the door inside him open wider? His gaze darted around the room. Dozens of glowing symbols still burned, etched into every surface. Each one throbbed brighter now, as if calling to him. His fist ached to smash them. His whole body wanted to. The woman's eyes softened with something like sorrow. You feel it, don't you? The urge. The house knows you. It wants you to finish what was started. Daniel's knees weakened. The water was nearly at his chest. The giant loomed, arms raised, waiting. The smaller versions of himself pressed closer, their whispers drilling into his ears. Burn. 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 Daniel clenched his teeth until his jaw ached. Then what am I supposed to do? He shouted, voice breaking. If I don't fight, what's left? The woman leaned close, her breath like ice against his ear. You must find the first door. The words lingered like a chill in his chest. You must find the first door. Daniel blinked through the rising flood, water stinging his eyes, burning his throat with the taste of iron and rot. The first door? He rasped, nearly choking on the words. Where? What the hell does that mean? The woman didn't answer. She only began to fade, her edges dissolving into mist, until she was little more than a shadow in the pulsing red glow. Her whisper trailed the air as she vanished completely. You opened it once. You'll know it when you see it. The flood churned harder, sucking at his chest, dragging him down. The giant roared, slamming its fists into the water, sending spray against the walls. Daniel's mind raced. The first door. Not the front door. Not the house itself. Something else. His thoughts clawed backward, to the moment he arrived, to the mailbox sagging on its post, to the brass key cold in his pocket. To the envelope. The letter. The letter. His breath caught. The shaky handwriting, the vague words. We need you, come to Stillwater Lane. That had been the first step. The moment he read it, something inside him had shifted. He hadn't realized it then, but that was when the latch turned, when the door inside him had first cracked open. The flood dragged him deeper, lapping at his chin. Daniel clawed at the carvings on the wall, pulling himself up enough to breathe. His chest heaved. The letter, he muttered. If that was the key, then the first door. Lightning flared, blinding. For a split second, every wall, every board, every reflection of himself screamed the same shape, a door. Not a physical one, but burned into his mind, into his chest. He felt it there, behind his ribs, heavy, waiting. Daniel pressed his fist against his sternum, teeth clenched as panic and revelation collided. It's in me, he whispered. The door's in me. The giant's roar split the air, shaking the rafters. Its arms crashed down, waves nearly swallowing him whole. The smaller reflections circled like predators, whispering, Open it wider! Wider! Daniel squeezed his eyes shut, hand pressed hard to his chest. He forced the words out, choking, trembling. Then I'll shut it. I'll shut it forever. Daniel pressed harder against his chest, as if sheer force could crush the phantom door inside him. His ribs ached, but the weight wasn't physical, It was deeper, like a pressure behind the bone, threatening to burst outward. The reflections circled closer, their pale faces flickering in the floodlight glow of the carvings. They whispered together in his own voice. "Don't close it. You'll drown. You'll starve. You'll vanish." Daniel shook his head violently, coughing as water splashed into his mouth. "No! I'm not yours!" The giant surged forward, its long arms slamming against the walls. Boards cracked, water spouted through the seams, the room itself straining under its weight. With every strike, Daniel felt the door inside him shudder, threatening to swing wide. He dropped to his knees, forcing his hands against the floor for balance. His breaths came ragged, chest rattling with each inhale. He closed his eyes. If it's a door, then there has to be a lock. A way to seal it. There has to. The house groaned. The flood pressed harder, rising to his jaw. Cold hands grabbed at him again, reflections pulling, dragging him toward the center. He ignored them, forcing his focus inward deeper, searching past the panic and terror. In the dark of his mind, he saw it. A door, not made of wood or glass, but of himself. Flesh, bone, blood. Hinges etched into his ribs, a handle shaped from the beat of his heart. It stood slightly ajar, blackness seeping through the crack. From beyond came voices. Hundreds. Thousands. Crying, laughing, begging. The flood within him matched the flood outside. Daniel's body trembled. His lips moved, whispering to himself. "Close, close, close." He imagined his hands gripping that door, shoving against it with everything he had. It resisted, heavier than stone. His muscles spasmed as though he were wrestling with his own heart. The giant bellowed. The flood rose. His reflection screamed at once. "Keep it open! Keep it open!" Daniel's teeth ground together, blood spilling from his bitten lip. He pushed harder, every ounce of strength pouring into the effort. The crack narrowed, just barely. The voices wailed louder. And then, something else. A faint click. Like the turn of a lock. The faint click reverberated through Daniel's bones, sharp and final, like a key turning in his sternum. For a heartbeat, the flood stilled. The voices faltered. Even the giant froze, its long arms suspended in mid-swing. Daniel gasped for breath, water sloshing at his chin. His whole body shook, every nerve screaming. "I did it," he thought, dizzy with relief. "I locked it." But then the pain came. It started in his chest, a tearing, burning ache that radiated outward like fire in his veins. His back arched, his teeth clenched so hard they threatened to crack. His skin flushed hot, then cold, then numb. He felt as though he'd driven nails into his own heart. The whispers around him shifted, no longer urging him to keep it open. Now they pleaded, "Don't close us out. We'll be alone again. You'll kill us." The reflections clawed at him, their pale hands frantic, not to drag him down this time but to cling to him. Their blurred faces twisted with desperation. They looked less monstrous now, closer to human, closer to him. Daniel choked on a sob, water filling his mouth. I'm not yours!" he screamed, the words garbled raw. The giant roared. Its faceless head split wider, spilling water like a broken dam. It swung its massive arm, shattering a wall. Boards splintered, and behind them Daniel glimpsed more darkness, endless, writhing, full of shapes that pressed forward like a crowd waiting to rush through. The locked door inside him shuddered violently, rattling against its hinges. The blackness beyond clawed at the cracks, furious, desperate. Daniel felt himself splitting in two. One half anchored to the lock, forcing it closed, clinging to the last ounce of control. The other half drowning, body failing, lungs collapsing under the flood. He knew, with horrible clarity, that the house hadn't lied. Locking the door wasn't free. It demanded something. Something vital. And if he kept it shut, he wasn't sure he would survive it. The woman's voice returned, low and mournful, echoing inside him instead of the room. "Every door needs a sacrifice." Daniel's body convulsed as the house pressed its weight against him. The water rose over his mouth, filling his throat, yet somehow he still heard the woman's voice inside his chest. Every door needs a sacrifice. His ribs screamed with pressure. The lock he'd forced into place rattled violently, as though something on the other side hammered at it with endless fists. The pain was unbearable, like his heart was tearing itself apart to keep the door sealed. The reflections swirled around him in the flood, their faces clearer now. Some looked terrified, others sorrowful, others pleading. They clutched at his arms, his shoulders, even his hair, their mouths spilling desperate cries. "Don't kill us! We are you! You'll die too!" Daniel tried to push them away, but his arms felt like lead. His strength bled into the lock inside him. He was holding it with everything he had, every drop of will, but it wasn't enough. The giant raised its dripping arms again, water pouring from its hollow face. It would smash him apart, crack his body like kindling, and the lock would burst wide again. Daniel's thoughts spun. What do I give it? What do I have to offer? Images surged unbidden, his small apartment, cluttered but safe. His boss's clipped voice reminding him of deadlines. His daughter's photo tucked in his wallet, her smile frozen in a moment before the distance grew between them. Every piece of his life, mundane and precious. His throat burned. His voice ripped out raw, barely a whisper in the flood. Not her. Don't take her. The house answered with silence, an awful, waiting silence. And Daniel understood. If the lock was to hold, it needed him. His life. His strength. His future. He could give it everything, burn himself out, become nothing but a hollow shell sealing the door forever. The house would lose its power, but so would he. The giant bellowed, its arms crashing downward. The reflection shrieked, clinging tighter. The lock trembled, seconds from breaking. Daniel's chest heaved, tears mixing with the flood. He whispered one last time, voice shaking. If it's me you want, then take me. The lock clanged shut, and everything went black. The blackness wasn't empty. Daniel floated in it, weightless, breathless, yet somehow alive. The crushing cold of the flood had vanished, replaced by a stillness that stretched in every direction. No water, no house, no voices, only silence so absolute it felt like a scream held too long. He looked down at his hands. They were pale, translucent, edges blurring like smoke. His chest was a hollow cavity. Where his heart should be, there was only a locked door, glowing faintly red. The voices that had once begged and pleaded were gone. The scratching at the hinges had ceased. All was quiet. Is this it? He whispered into the dark. His voice didn't echo. It sounded as though it had been swallowed the instant it left his lips. Is this death? A ripple moved through the void. The woman appeared again, her form wavering, water still dripping endlessly from her hair and dress. But her face was softer now, no longer contorted by grief or rage. She looked almost peaceful. No, she said gently. This is sacrifice. Daniel's throat tightened. Did I stop it? She nodded slowly. For now. The door is locked. The flood cannot pass through you. Relief shuddered through him, though it was fragile, thin. His body felt like ash ready to scatter. So I did it, he whispered. I saved myself. The woman's pale eyes glistened. Not yourself. Them. Daniel's gaze flicked upward, though there was no sky. The void rippled again. For the briefest instant, he saw the house, the still water porch sagging in the rain, its windows dark, its walls groaning as if under strain. But the water that had surrounded it was gone. The trees returned, the road, the mailbox. His car sitting right where he had left it. The house looked empty. Daniel's chest hitched. I kept it in. I kept them all inside me. The woman's voice softened to a whisper. Yes. You are the lock now. His hands trembled. His voice cracked. What about me? What happens to me? Her smile was faint, almost kind. You stay. Until someone else opens their door. Daniel's body dissolved further, his edges scattering into the dark. He felt himself seeping into the lock, into the silence, into endless waiting. He tried to scream, but no sound came, and Stillwater Lane was quiet once more. Rain tapped steadily against the windshield as Claire squinted at the crooked mailbox half hidden by weeds. The numbers were rusted, nearly unreadable. She checked the address scribbled on the scrap of paper in her lap. Stillwater Lane. She sighed. Of course. Her cousin had begged her to come, just a quick favor, house sitting for a weekend while some paperwork cleared. The request had arrived in a plain envelope with a shaky signature. She nearly tossed it, but guilt got the better of her. Now, as her headlights illuminated the narrow gravel drive swallowed in overgrowth, unease prickled at the back of her neck. The house came into view at the end of the lane. Sagging porch, black windows, roofline hunched like it carried centuries of sorrow. For a moment, Claire thought she saw light flicker in an upstairs window, faint, like a candle. She blinked, and it was gone. Great, she muttered, killing the engine. Creepy house in the middle of nowhere. Just what I needed. The rain quickened, drumming on the roof of her car. She grabbed her bag, pulled up her hood, and sprinted to the porch. The steps groaned beneath her weight, spongy with rot. The front door hung slightly ajar, the brass knob dulled with age. She hesitated. Her cousin had mailed her a key, but clearly she wouldn't need it. She pushed gently, and the door swung inward with a long sigh. The smell hit her instantly: damp wood, mildew, and something faintly sweet, sour, like fruit gone bad. She wrinkled her nose. Lovely. Dropping her bag in the entryway, she fished out her phone. No signal. Figures. The GPS arrow was frozen on the screen, stuck like a compass that refused to point north. Lightning flared outside, illuminating the staircase at the end of the hall. For a split second, Claire thought she saw someone standing at the top, broad-shouldered, head tilted, eyes empty. Thunder rolled, rattling the windows. The landing was empty. Claire exhaled slowly. Okay. Just shadows. Just shadows. Then, from upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Claire stood frozen in the foyer, her hand tightening around her phone, though its dead screen offered no comfort. The creak above had been deliberate, weighty, the kind of sound a house makes when someone is walking. She swallowed hard. Hello? Her voice wavered in the silence. Is someone there? No reply. Only the rain ticking against the roof. She forced her legs to move, the stairs groaning under her weight as she climbed. Each step echoed too loudly, like the house wanted to announce her arrival. The smell of mildew grew sharper the higher she went, mingling with something faintly metallic. At the top, the hallway stretched long, doors lining both sides. Some stood closed, others cracked open just enough to feel like eyes watching. A faded carpet runner muffled her steps, though every board beneath still creaked. Her phone's flashlight beams skimmed the walls, and she stopped cold. Drawings. Dozens of them, tacked haphazardly to peeling wallpaper. Stick figures scribbled in crayon, their faces left blank. Houses without windows. Black shapes looming larger than the rest. Claire's chest tightened. She muttered to herself. Okay, just old kid stuff. Weird but old. But one drawing caught her eye. A stick figure standing at the base of a staircase. Another figure loomed at the top, broad, faceless, arms long and crooked. Her beam shook as she moved past. The door at the far end of the hall creaked wider, hinges moaning. Claire froze, her heart hammering. Look, she said aloud, voice trembling. If someone's here, I don't want trouble. Just tell me. A whisper floated down the hall. Help me. Claire's breath caught. Hello? Silence. Then closer now, so close it felt like it brushed her ear. You opened the door. Her phone flickered, the flashlight sputtering. On the screen, white text appeared against the black, though no signal glowed in the corner. Welcome back. Claire dropped the phone. It clattered against the runner, the words vanishing. But in her chest, deep and heavy, something stirred, like a latch turning. Claire bent down quickly, snatching up her phone. The screen was blank again, flashlight dead. She jabbed at the buttons, but nothing responded. Her stomach twisted. Great. Dead battery. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. The phone had been full when she left the car. She shoved it into her pocket and turned back toward the hall. The drawings fluttered faintly, though no draft stirred. For a moment she swore the black shapes scribbled in crayon had grown, spreading across the paper like mold. Her chest tightened. Something heavy pressed inside her, a weight just beneath her ribs. At first she thought it was panic, the kind of pressure that comes before hyperventilating. But it grew sharper, like a hinge grinding, a door shifting. Claire pressed her palm to her sternum. What the hell? The floorboard behind her creaked. She spun, her breath catching. Nothing. Just a dark stretch of hall leading back toward the stairs. Get a grip, she whispered. You're just spooked. Old houses make noises. But the weight in her chest deepened, pulsing once, then again, like something inside her had been waiting to wake up. A soft laugh floated from the far room, faint and childlike. It was followed by a murmur, lower, deeper, overlapping. Words she couldn't quite make out. Her throat went dry. Against her better judgment, she moved toward the sound. The carpet runner was damp beneath her shoes now, squishing faintly. She hadn't noticed that before. The door stood half open. Light flickered faintly beyond, the glow of embers. Claire pushed it wider. The nursery stretched before her. Pale yellow wallpaper peeled at the seams. A crib sagged in the corner, its bars cracked. Dolls lay scattered across the floor, faces cracked, glass eyes glinting. Her beam, weak now, as if her phone still struggled though it was off, swept the room. The rocking chair by the window swayed gently, and in it sat a man. His clothes clung with water, his head bowed, his hands folded limply in his lap. His face was pale, blurred at the edges, but she knew, deep down, without reason, that he was real. He lifted his head slowly. His eyes met hers. Hollow. Tired. You shouldn't have come, he said. Claire froze in the doorway, her hand tightening against the frame. The man's voice was raw, ragged, as if dragged from deep water. His hollow eyes fixed on her, steady but weighted with something she didn't understand. Her mouth worked before her mind caught up. Who are you? He blinked slowly. Water trickled from his hair, down his cheek, dripping onto the warped cushion beneath him. His lips moved with effort. I was you, he whispered. Claire shook her head. What does that mean? I don't even. He leaned forward slightly, his movements stiff, reluctant. The rocking chair groaned beneath him. The letter. You opened it. That was the key. It doesn't matter why you came. You read it. You believed it. Now. His hand lifted weakly and pressed against his own chest. The door is inside you. Claire's stomach twisted. The pressure beneath her ribs pulsed again, sharper this time. She staggered, clutching her sternum. No, she gasped. No, I didn't open anything. The man's gaze hardened. You did. Just like I did. Her knees weakened, and she slid halfway down the wall, panting. Then what are you? His hollow eyes glistened with something like sorrow. The lock. Claire's breath hitched. The lock for what? The room darkened. The dolls on the floor shifted, turning their faces toward her. The air grew colder, thick with the smell of wet rot. The flood, he whispered. The voices. Everything that waits on the other side. I held them. I kept them shut. But now, he winced, clutching his chest, his body flickering like a failing projection. Now you're here. And it doesn't need me anymore. Claire shook her head violently, tears stinging her eyes. No. I won't. I don't want any part of this. The man's faint smile was full of despair. Neither did I. He rose slowly to his feet. Water streamed from his body, pooling on the floorboards. His form blurred further, dissolving at the edges. Run if you like, he said softly. But the door follows. Always. And then he was gone. The rocking chair rocked once more, creaking in the silence. The pressure in Claire's chest slammed hard, like a fist striking from within. She doubled over, gasping. The flood had found her. Claire clutched her chest, gasping as though something inside her tried to break free. Each pulse came heavier, shaking her ribs. She staggered against the nursery wall, her palms sliding across peeling wallpaper. The room shifted. The dolls twitched, one by one, their porcelain jaws creaking open. From each cracked mouth spilled whispers, thousands of them, layered, rushing like floodwater through a broken dam. You opened it. You are the lock. You belong to us now. Claire shook her head violently. No, no, I don't. Her voice cracked, panic surging hot in her veins. The wallpaper peeled back under her hand, curling like skin. Beneath it, glowing carvings appeared, symbols etched deep into the wood, pulsing faintly red. The same markings Daniel had clawed at. The pressure in her chest worsened. Her breath came short, shallow, as though the room itself siphoned air from her lungs. Lightning flashed through the window. For an instant, she saw the crib was no longer empty. A bundle lay in it, wet blankets shifting. Small hands pushed upward, fingers too long, nails blackened. Claire stumbled back, colliding with the rocking chair. It lurched violently, though no one sat in it. Her phone flickered in her pocket, buzzing once, screen lighting. She yanked it out. One line of text glowed across the display. Don't lock it. Claire's pulse thundered. She backed toward the doorway, whispering, What do you want from me? The voices poured from every wall, every doll, the crib, even the boards beneath her feet. To stay open. The pressure in her chest shifted suddenly, not pain now, but temptation. She felt the urge to let go, to stop resisting. If she opened the door inside her fully, the weight would vanish. The whispers promised relief, power, belonging. Her fingers trembled against her sternum. What if I just let it? The floorboards buckled. Black water surged through the cracks, spilling over the nursery floor. The crib rocked violently, the bundle inside twitching, laughing and crying at once. Claire screamed, bolting into the hallway. The door slammed shut behind her, and the weight in her chest pulsed again, harder. The house was testing her. Claire staggered into the hallway, clutching her chest. The pressure beneath her ribs throbbed like a second heartbeat, each pulse heavier, hungrier. She pressed her back to the wall, gulping air, but it wasn't enough. The house seemed to breathe with her, stealing half her breath each time she exhaled. The doors lining the corridor rattled one after another, thud, 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 as though fists pounded from the other side. Some creaked open an inch, spilling shadows across the damp carpet runner. Claire backed toward the staircase. No, she whispered. I'm not playing this game. A child's giggle drifted from behind her. She spun, lightless phone trembling in her grip. The giggle echoed again, this time layered with another, a man's low chuckle, then a woman's broken laugh. Soon the hall was alive with it, laughter weaving like a noose. The weight in her chest pulsed harder, spreading heat down her arms. Her palms tingled, fingers twitching. She gasped, realizing the door inside her wasn't just stirring, it was pushing to be opened. No, she hissed, squeezing her fists. You don't get in. The house responded. The farthest door on the left slammed open. A rush of cold poured out, carrying the stink of mold and rot. Inside, a staircase descended into pure darkness, far deeper than the house should have allowed. Whispers poured up the steps like steam. Come down. Come see. Come know. Claire's stomach lurched. Her instincts screamed to run, but the pressure in her chest eased the closer she stepped toward that door. Relief dangled in front of her, sweet and inviting. She shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. You're tricking me. That's not real. The whispers deepened, layered with the voices of children, men, women, some crying, some laughing. It is real. We are real. All you have to do is open. The weight inside her surged, forcing her forward. Her legs trembled, her body moving against her will. She clung to the doorframe, nails digging into splintered wood. "I won't!" she screamed, raw, defiant. The whispers cut off. The hall fell silent. Then the black water began to rise again, seeping from beneath every door, inching up over her shoes. And Claire realized the refusal was only the first trial. The water spread quickly across the carpet runner, soaking into her shoes, climbing to her ankles. It wasn't ordinary water. It was thicker, colder, like oil shot through with ash. Every ripple carried faint whispers, as if the floor itself had become a mouth. Claire shivered, backing toward the staircase. No, no, no! But the way down was gone. Where the stairs should have been, there was only more water, endless, black, waiting to swallow her. She froze, heart pounding. The whispers rose with the flood. At first scattered pleas, cries, laughs, but then they converged into one voice. A man's. Deep. Tired. Don't fight it. Claire's stomach dropped. She knew that voice. The man from the nursery chair. The one who had told her he was the lock. "Daniel," she whispered. His voice spread through the hall, vibrating in the walls. "I tried. I held them back as long as I could. But the house always finds another." Her jaw clenched. "I'm not like you." The water surged higher, reaching her knees. She staggered against the wall, the weight in her chest pulsing in rhythm with the flood. Her ribs ached, each breath a struggle. Daniel's voice thickened, layered with dozens of others. "You already are." Claire squeezed her eyes shut. "Don't listen. Don't give in." She clawed at her sternum as if she could pry the door out of herself. Her skin burned under her nails. The doors lining the hallway burst open all at once, slamming against the walls. Water gushed from them in torrents, flooding faster. From each doorway, pale shapes stumbled into the hall. Children, men, women, their faces blurred, dripping, their mouths wide as they whispered. "You can't hold it. You'll drown. Open." Claire's tears blurred her vision. She shook her head violently, backing down the hall as the figures advanced. "I won't open it!" she screamed. "You hear me? I won't!" For the briefest instant, silence. Then the weight in her chest pulsed so violently she fell to her knees. The flood surged higher, icy hands breaking the surface, clutching at her wrists, her ankles. And from the darkness beyond the doors came a roar, not human, not animal, but the sound of something vast pressing forward. The house wasn't testing her anymore. It was trying to break her. The hands shot higher, clutching Claire's arms and legs, icy enough to burn. She screamed, thrashing, but the grip was relentless. The flood rose to her chest, her throat, her mouth. Her cry gurgled into silence as water filled her lungs. Her vision blurred. The hallway melted away, replaced by endless black. She sank, weightless yet crushed, the pressure like chains around her ribs. Figures drifted around her in the dark, pale bodies, eyes wide and empty, mouths spilling bubbles of whispers. They circled her like vultures. One leaned close, its blurred face nearly touching hers. Its lips moved, and through the roar of the flood, she heard Daniel's voice again. "Don't fight. Let it open. You'll breathe if you let it open." Her chest convulsed, desperate for air. The weight inside her pulsed harder, pushing against her ribs, promising relief if she just let go. Claire shook her head violently, bubbles spilling from her mouth. "No. Not like this. Not like him." The pale bodies clung tighter. Their whispers shifted, pleading now. "Help us. Don't leave us here. You can free us." Her heart hammered. Were they prisoners like Daniel had been? Souls caught inside this place, begging to escape? Her lungs burned. Black spots swam across her vision. She couldn't hold out much longer. Her fingers clawed against the water, useless, desperate. Then light. A faint shimmer far above, brighter than the murk around her. Not the sickly glow of carvings, not lightning, but clean, white light. Claire kicked toward it, thrashing against the hands. They tore at her clothes, her skin, but she tore free, forcing her legs to move despite the weight dragging her down. Her chest screamed for air. the light swelled. She reached, her vision narrowing. Her hand broke the surface, then her head. She gasped, coughing violently, water pouring from her throat. She collapsed against the wooden floor, hacking, clutching her chest. When her vision cleared, she realized she wasn't in the hallway anymore. She was in the parlor. The furniture stood draped in sheets, the fireplace cold. But every frame on the mantel now held her photograph, sleeping, driving, standing at her apartment window. And in every picture, behind her shoulder, stood Daniel. Claire staggered to her feet, her lungs still raw from drowning. She wiped water from her eyes, blinking at the mantel. Frame after frame stared back at her. Her. Everywhere. In one, she slept curled on her couch, hair messy, mouth slack. In another, she stood in line at the grocery store, her hands full of fruit. One photo froze her at her desk, typing with a frown. And in each of them, Daniel lingered just behind her, his hollow eyes fixed on her, his soaked clothes dripping. Always watching. Claire's throat closed. "No," she whispered. "That's impossible." The sheets draped over the furniture stirred. One by one, they collapsed inward, sinking as if something had risen from beneath. Figures stepped free, pale, blurred at the edges, dripping with black water. And at their center stood Daniel. His hollow eyes glistened as he raised a trembling hand. "I told you," he rasped. "The door follows." Claire's knees locked. "You were gone. You sacrificed yourself." Daniel's mouth twisted, grief cutting across his ruined face. "I was the lock. Until you came. Now the house doesn't need me." The weight in her chest pulsed violently, forcing her to double over with a gasp. She felt the door inside her straining, hinges creaking, ready to burst open. Daniel stepped closer, water dripping from his fingers. His voice was ragged, pleading. "Don't fight it. If you let it open, it won't hurt. You'll see them all, and you'll never be alone again." Claire's stomach lurched. "I will fight it. I won't end up like you." Daniel's eyes narrowed, sorrow giving way to something darker. "Then you'll drown. And this time, you won't come back up." The walls groaned. The floor buckled. Black water gushed through the cracks, flooding the parlor in seconds. The photographs on the mantel warped, the images of Claire blurring, Daniel's figure growing sharper. Claire stumbled back, chest heaving, her mind a storm of terror and rage. The water surged up to her knees, cold as knives. Daniel's whisper carried across the flood, soft, almost tender. "Choose, Claire. Be the lock, or be the flood." The black water surged higher, biting at Claire's waist. Her chest throbbed with unbearable pressure, each pulse like a hammer against bone. She clutched herself, gasping, her knees buckling as the weight dragged her down. Daniel waded closer through the flood, his hollow eyes locked on hers. His form flickered with every step, half solid, half shadow. "I fought it for years," he rasped. "And for what?" "The house doesn't let you win. It only waits." Claire's teeth clenched. "Then why are you still here?" His ruined mouth twisted. "Because I gave it everything. My life. My soul. And still, it wasn't enough. Now it wants yours." The voices rose around them, bubbling from the flood, seeping from the walls. "Open the door. Open. Open." The photographs warped further, glass shattering, images bleeding. Claire's face blurred until only Daniel's remained, clear and sharp, standing where she once had been. Her chest convulsed. The lock inside her door rattled, shaking violently. A crack split down its center, and through it spilled whispers, voices desperate to be freed. "Let us out. Don't leave us in the dark. We'll drown if you don't." Claire dropped to her knees, the flood nearly at her chest. I can't hold it." Daniel loomed over her, water dripping from his outstretched hands. "Then stop trying. Give in. Be the flood. End the fight." She looked up at him through tears. "And if I don't?" His hollow eyes glistened with something like pity. "Then you'll be the lock. And the lock always breaks." The walls shuddered, cracks spidering outward as more water gushed in. The ceiling groaned as though the house itself was drowning. Claire squeezed her eyes shut, pressing both hands over her chest, her heart pounding against her palms. No. I won't give in. I won't be like you. The whispers screamed in unison, furious, shaking the flood like a storm. Daniel's face twisted with anguish. Then you'll die, Claire! Her voice tore from her throat, raw and defiant. Better me than the world! The lock inside her chest clanged shut. The flood froze. The house fell silent, and Daniel dissolved, collapsing into ripples that spread across the water before vanishing completely. Silence. The flood around Claire stilled, glassy and black. The whispers ceased as though someone had pressed a hand over 1,000 mouths. She knelt in the parlor, water lapping at her chest, her breath ragged, her hands still pressed to her sternum. The lock inside her throbbed once, then sealed. She felt it, not just in her ribs but in her soul, as if an iron door had slammed shut. The photographs on the mantel went blank. Frames fell from their hooks, shattering into the water. The glowing carvings that had once pulsed on the walls dimmed, then vanished. Claire's head sagged forward. "It's done," she whispered. But the victory tasted like ash. The water didn't drain. It didn't retreat. It held, still and heavy, pressing around her like a warning. And beneath its surface, shadows shifted. Not gone. Not defeated. Only contained. A voice curled from the silence. Not Daniel's. Not the woman's. Something older, deeper. It came from everywhere at once, vibrating through her bones. "You are the lock now." Claire shivered, her stomach twisting. "For how long?" The voice almost laughed, though it was little more than a rush of air. "Until the door finds another." Her chest tightened. The meaning struck deep. She hadn't ended anything, only delayed it. One day someone else would come, read the wrong letter, step through the wrong doorway. And when they did, the lock inside her would break. Her tears stung, mixing with the flood. "So I'll just wait?" "Yes." The house groaned. The walls cracked. The ceiling bowed. And then the parlor dissolved around her, fading into endless dark. Claire stood, or thought she stood, in the void Daniel had once described. Her body blurred at the edges, her skin paling, water dripping from her hair. In her chest, the lock glowed faintly, pulsing with her heartbeat. Behind it pressed the flood, countless voices scratching and clawing to be free. She screamed into the dark, the sound tearing her throat. But no one heard. The house on Stillwater Lane fell silent once more. Years passed. The house at the end of Stillwater Lane sagged deeper into the earth, its paint blistering, its porch half collapsed. Vines crept up its walls. Its windows stared blank, dark as drowned eyes. To anyone passing on the road, it was just another ruin, a relic too broken to be saved. But inside, the lock pulsed. Claire remained, though, remaining, no longer meant what it once had. Her body had long dissolved into the dark, her edges blurred, her face hollow. Only her chest still burned, the door sealed, holding back the flood. The voices pressed harder each year. Sometimes they begged. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they screamed until the house itself shook. But the lock held. Until the envelope was sent. It appeared the way it always did, plain, cream-colored, edges curled faintly as though it had waited too long in damp air. The handwriting was shaky, uneven. Just an address scrawled across the front. A stamp that no post office had sold in decades. And one simple line inside. "We need you at Stillwater Lane." Miles away, a man named Michael pulled the envelope from his mailbox. He frowned at the return address, none. He rubbed at the faint dampness clinging to the paper. "Stillwater Lane?" he muttered. "Never heard of it." Yet, as he read the words again, something in him stirred. A weight, faint but insistent, pressed against his chest. He touched his sternum absently, confused. The letter crinkled in his hand. The ink bled faintly, black smearing into the page like water soaking through. Michael looked toward his house, then back at the letter. He couldn't say why. but he suddenly felt as if he owed someone something. As if he'd been summoned. Far away, in the ruin at the end of Stillwater Lane, Claire stirred in the dark. Her hollow eyes opened. She felt the pulse in her chest weaken, the lock tremble. Another had read the words. Another door had opened. Her lips parted, a whisper drifting from her throat like smoke. No. Not yet. But it was too late. The house had chosen. Michael's tires crunched over gravel as his old sedan rolled to a stop. He peered through the rain-smeared windshield at the mailbox leaning crookedly by the road. Stillwater Lane. The numbers were rusted nearly smooth, but the shape of them was clear enough. This is it, he muttered, though he wasn't sure why he'd said it aloud. The house sat hunched at the end of the overgrown drive. Its porch sagged, roofline crooked, windows black and depthless. Even from the car, Michael swore he felt it watching him. He rubbed at his sternum again, grimacing. The pressure that had started when he opened the letter hadn't gone away. If anything, it had grown sharper, like something knocking faintly from the inside. The rain picked up, pattering harder against the glass. For a moment, Michael considered backing out, driving away, pretending the envelope had never arrived. But the thought slid out of his mind as quickly as it came, like water through cupped hands. He opened the door and stepped into the rain. The drive was little more than mud and weeds, swallowing his shoes as he trudged forward. The air reeked faintly of rot, like damp wood long forgotten. At the porch steps, he paused. A strange sense of déjà vu prickled at him, though he'd never been here before. The boards groaned under his weight, soft as wet sponge. The front door hung slightly ajar. Its brass knob was cold, green with tarnish. He didn't have to try it. Something in him already knew it would open. "Hello?" he called, peering inside. Silence. He pushed the door wider. It creaked, swinging into the gloom. Dust swirled lazily in the beam of his phone's flashlight. The air inside was heavy, damp, carrying the faint sweetness of something rotting beneath the floorboards. Michael stepped in. The floor sagged faintly beneath his weight, but held. The foyer stretched ahead, shadows pooling in the corners. A staircase climbed into the dark, the banister warped and splintered. The hallway extended deeper, lined with shut doors. The pressure in his chest pulsed once. Harder. Michael winced, clutching himself. His breath hitched. From the top of the stairs, a woman's voice whispered faintly, echoing through the house. "You opened the door." Michael froze at the base of the stairs, his phone trembling in his grip. The voice had been faint, but unmistakable, a woman's whisper carried by the weight of the house itself. His mouth went dry. "Who's there?" The silence that followed was worse than an answer. The air seemed to thicken, pressing against his ears, his lungs. His phone's flashlight flickered, dimming to a pale glow. He climbed one creaking step, then another. Each groan of the wood sounded like a warning. By the time he reached the landing, sweat chilled his back despite the cold. The hallway stretched ahead, lined with doors. Some were cracked open, shadows seeping from within. Others were shut tight, the paint peeling, as though they'd been closed for decades. Michael's pulse hammered. He told himself it was just an old house, nothing more. But then he saw them, the drawings. Dozens tacked to the walls. Stick figures scribbled in crayon. Children with blank faces. Houses without doors. And always, looming shapes, black, heavy, filling the page. He swallowed hard. "Jesus!" A soft sound broke the silence. Not the house groaning, not the storm outside. Humming. A lullaby. Michael's skin prickled. The tune was broken, halting, sung by a voice that had forgotten how it should go. He followed it down the hall, his steps slow, careful. The door at the end stood half open. Light flickered faintly within, like embers. "Hello?" Michael whispered. His voice cracked. The humming stopped. Michael nudged the door wider. The nursery stretched before him, pale yellow walls peeling, a crib sagging in the corner, dolls scattered across the floor. A rocking chair swayed gently near the window, though no wind stirred. In it sat a woman. Her hair hung in damp strands, her skin pale, hollow-eyed. She looked straight at him, and when she spoke, her voice carried through the weight in his chest. "You shouldn't have come." Michael froze in the doorway, his phone light trembling across the peeling nursery walls. The woman's hollow eyes glistened in the ember glow, her voice still echoing in his chest. His throat tightened. Who are you?" Her lips curved in something that might once have been a smile. Water trickled down her chin, dripping from the ends of her hair into the warped cushion of the rocking chair. "I was the one who kept them in," she whispered. "I was the lock." Michael's pulse hammered. He gripped his chest, that strange weight pounding in time with her words. "Lock? What are you talking about?" Her eyes drifted to the crib in the corner. The blanket inside shifted, something beneath it squirming faintly. Michael's stomach twisted. "The door is inside you now," she said. "You opened it when you read the letter. Just as I did. Just as the one before me did." Michael shook his head violently. "No. That's crazy. It's just a house. You're—" Her voice cut him off, sharp with sorrow. "It is never just a house. It is what waits behind the door. What you've already let in." Michael stumbled back a step, his phone beam jerking. The drawings on the nursery wall rippled as if stirred by a breeze, their black scribbles stretching outward like grasping hands. His chest throbbed again, harder, forcing him to double over. He gasped, clutching at himself, certain something inside him was trying to claw its way free. Claire, if that was her name, leaned forward in the chair, her pale eyes never leaving his. "Do you feel it? The flood pressing against the lock? It wants you to open. If you resist, it will drown you. If you give in, you become it." Michael panted, sweat chilling his face. "What happens if I don't do either?" Her expression softened with grief. "Then you will break. And when you break, the door will open wider than ever before." The blanket in the crib twitched violently, the sound of wet giggling bubbling up from beneath it. Claire's whisper slid across the air like a knife. "You have already begun." Michael's chest convulsed. The pressure that had been a dull weight all day now slammed against his ribs like a fist, once, twice, again. He collapsed to one knee, clutching himself, wheezing as if his lungs were filling with ice. Claire didn't move from the rocking chair. She only watched, hollow-eyed, her face wet with more than water. "It begins," she murmured. Michael's phone slipped from his grasp and clattered across the floor. Its screen flickered, then lit with a single line of text. "Open," he gasped, choking. "Get out of my head!" The blanket in the crib bulged, writhing as if something inside clawed to get free. The sound came again, giggling, but warped, bubbling like it rose through water. The dolls on the floor toppled one by one, their porcelain jaws opening, whispers spilling from their cracked mouths. "Let us out! Let us out! Let us out!" Michael staggered to his feet, backing toward the door. "No! I'm not doing this!" But the house disagreed. The floorboards split beneath his shoes with a sharp crack. Black water surged up in a sudden gush, splashing cold against his legs. He screamed and stumbled back, slamming into the wall. The drawings tacked there shuddered, their crayon scribbles bleeding outward until black shapes consumed the paper. The flood climbed his shins, his knees dragging him down. His chest pulsed harder, so violent he thought his sternum would shatter. He gagged, throat closing, lungs screaming for air. Claire rose slowly from the rocking chair. Water poured from her body as though she were a vessel cracked open. She stepped across the floor without disturbing the flood, her hollow eyes fixed on him. "You cannot run," she whispered. "The house has chosen. You are the door now." Michael thrashed against the rising tide, his voice breaking into a raw scream. I won't open it." The flood surged higher, swallowing his waist, dragging him down. The black water surged past Michael's chest, freezing his ribs, crushing the breath from his lungs. His scream cut short as the flood swallowed his mouth. He clawed at the walls, nails splitting on splintered wood, but the tide only pulled harder. His head slipped under. Darkness. Thick, endless, pressing in on every side. His body spun weightless, arms flailing uselessly in the cold. His lungs burned, his chest rattling as if the lock inside him were a second heart, beating violently, ready to burst. Shapes drifted in the murk. Pale bodies, hair streaming like seaweed, eyes wide and shining in the dark. They circled him slowly, mouths moving without sound. Each face was blurred, melting into another. Yet the longer he looked, the more familiar they became. Claire, Daniel, strangers, children, and then himself. Michael's reflection floated inches from his face, lips curling in a smile that did not belong to him. Its eyes were hollow pits, its voice slithering through the water directly into his skull. "You can't hold it. Open. Let us through," he screamed, bubbles tearing from his throat, but no sound carried. He shoved the reflection away, only for three more to surface, each a different version of himself. One younger, wide-eyed. One older, gaunt and weary. One bloated and waterlogged, its skin splitting at the seams. They reached for him together, whispering in his own voice. "You're already one of us." Michael thrashed wildly, kicking free, forcing his body upward. His chest felt like it was tearing in two, lungs on fire, the lock hammering inside him like it wanted out. The pale figures clung to his legs, his arms, dragging him down. Above, light. Faint but there. He clawed upward, shoving against the weight of himself. For an instant, he thought he'd never reach it. His body convulsed, his vision dimming. Then his hand broke the surface. Air rushed in, sharp and ragged. He gasped, coughing violently, collapsing onto slick floorboards. His whole body shook, water pouring from his throat. He lay there, trembling, until a shadow fell across him. Claire stood above, her hollow eyes filled with pity. "You see now," she whispered. "The door is not outside. It is you." Michael coughed until his throat was raw, each breath scraping like glass. His body ached from the cold, every muscle quivering as though the water still gripped him. He rolled onto his side, spitting black liquid that steamed faintly against the warped floorboards. Claire knelt beside him, her pale hand hovering just above his chest. "It is in you now. You feel it." Michael shoved her hand away, staggering to his feet. "No. I'm not like you. I'm not Daniel. I'm not, whatever this is." The walls groaned in answer, the boards flexing like lungs inhaling. From the cracks seeped more water, thin streams at first, then rivulets winding toward his feet. The whole house seemed to breathe with him, sinking to the frantic pace of his heart. Claire's eyes glistened. "You already opened it when you came. That is the truth none of us wanted to believe." Michael backed toward the parlor door, his phone beam jerking wildly across the walls. The drawings pinned there shifted again, stick figures warping into more human shapes, faces blurring into his own. "I didn't open anything," he shouted. "I just read a letter. That's all." His voice cracked, and the pressure in his chest answered with a sharp, painful pulse. He doubled over, groaning, clutching his sternum. It felt as though something inside him had slammed against the door, eager to burst through. Claire stepped closer, her whisper cutting through his pain. "You can deny it. You can fight it. But every second, the flood will press harder. And you will break." Michael lifted his head, his vision blurred with tears. "Then what the hell am I supposed to do? Just let it out? Let it destroy me?" Claire's pale face twitched with sorrow. "Not destroy you. Become you. And once you are the flood, there is no return." Michael stumbled back, his spine hitting the wall. "No. I'm not opening it. I'll find another way. I'll burn this place to the ground if I have to." The floor shuddered. The lights in the nursery guttered. From the crib came a low, gurgling laugh. Claire's eyes darkened. "That is exactly what it wants." Michael's fury cut through his terror. He tore himself from the wall, fists clenched, and stumbled toward the nearest drawing pin to the plaster. With a ragged shout, he ripped it free, crumpling it in his hands. The paper screamed. The sound was high and piercing, not ink, not crayon, but something alive. The crumpled sheet writhed in his palm before dissolving into black ash that burned his skin. Michael dropped it with a curse, shaking his hand. The house shuddered. The walls quaked, dust raining from the ceiling. From the cracks surged water, gushing faster, spreading in ripples across the floor. The dolls on the nursery rug toppled, their glass eyes rolling in their sockets until every one stared directly at him. Claire's face hardened. "Stop! You'll only make it stronger." Michael spun on her, wild-eyed. "If I don't fight, I drown. If I fight, I drown. So tell me, what's left?" Her hollow eyes flickered with grief. "Sacrifice. It's always sacrifice." But Michael wasn't listening. He hurled himself at the wall, fists pounding into another drawing. The paper tore, the wood beneath splintering as though it had bones. The glowing carvings hid in their pulse violently, brighter, brighter, before bursting in a spray of sparks. The nursery roared. Water exploded upward through the floorboards, drenching him in black spray. The crib collapsed in on itself, the blanket writhing as something beneath it thrashed free. Michael stumbled back, chest heaving. His knuckles bled, skin split from the impact. But the surge of rage drowned the pain. "You hear me?" he shouted into the house. "I'll rip every last one of you out of these walls." The floor buckled. A jagged crack split the boards at his feet, spreading like lightning. From it rose a pale hand, his hand. Another followed. And then his own face pulled itself free, dripping and hollow-eyed. "You can't fight yourself," the reflection rasped. More cracks split across the room. More hands. More faces. Dozens of Michaels crawling from the dark, their voices layering into one. "You are already open," Claire screamed, her voice drowned by the flood. Michael staggered backward as the first reflection dragged itself fully from the crack. Its skin sagged, gray and waterlogged, its hollow eyes fixed on him. Then another crawled free beside it, then another. Soon the nursery swarmed with pale, dripping Michaels, each one twitching as though controlled by invisible strings. Their mouths opened together. "You cannot shut what is already open." Michael's breath came ragged, chest burning with every word. "You're not me!" He grabbed the nearest doll and hurled it into one reflection's face. Porcelain shattered, shards scattering across the waterlogged floor. The reflection reeled, but another stepped forward instantly, whispering in his own voice. "We are you." The pressure in his chest throbbed so violently he collapsed to his knees, gagging. It felt like the lock inside him rattled, every hinge threatening to snap. His body bowed, veins bulging in his temples. The reflections circled him. Some grinned, some wept, some stared blankly. Each was him, but twisted, broken, drowned. One looked younger, skin unscarred, eyes full of fear. Another looked decades older, hair gone gray, jaw trembling with despair. Michael screamed, clutching his head. "I won't be you!" He surged upward, swinging his fists wildly. His knuckles cracked against one reflection's jaw. It shattered into black spray. For a heartbeat, triumph surged, until three more stepped into its place. They swarmed him, hands gripping his arms, his throat, his chest. Their touch was ice, burning into his skin. He thrashed, howling, slamming one against the wall, smashing another's face beneath his heel. But there were too many. The flood surged higher, rising to his waist, then his chest. The reflections lifted their heads, chanting in his own voice. "Open! Open! Open!" Claire's voice cut through the din, raw with desperation. "Michael! Don't give them your anger! It feeds them!" But Michael couldn't hear her. His own screams drowned everything, fury and terror tearing his throat raw. And the lock inside him pulsed wider. The reflections pressed tighter, their cold fingers digging into Michael's skin, their voices a cacophony of his own. The chant rattled his bones. "Open! Open! Open!" His chest convulsed. The lock inside him shuddered, a sharp snap echoing in his ribs. Michael screamed, collapsing onto his back in the rising flood. Water splashed over his face, into his mouth, choking him. Claire waded through the thrashing reflections, her pale form cutting the tide. She grabbed his shoulders, shaking him. "Fight them, Michael! Not with rage. Rage only feeds the door." He coughed, spitting water. His hollow-eyed doubles loomed above, jaws hanging slack, teeth black. One bent low until its face hovered inches from his. It whispered in his exact voice, low and intimate. "Why resist what you already are?" Michael thrashed upward, smashing his forehead into the reflection's skull. It burst into spray, but two more replaced it instantly. Their hands clawed his arms, pulling, tearing at him. His chest rattled with another crack, the lock splitting wider. He gasped, terror strangling his breath. "I can feel it. It's opening. I can't stop it." Claire's voice sharpened. "You must! Every moment you resist with violence, the flood grows stronger. You have to anchor yourself, hold the lock with will, not with rage." Michael snarled, tears streaking his soaked face. "I don't know how." The flood rose to his chin. The reflections dragged him deeper, pulling him toward the yawning crack in the floor where they'd crawled free. Beyond it writhed endless shadows, pressing forward eager. Another snap tore through his chest, pain exploding in his ribs. The lock had split almost completely now. Through the cracks, whispers gushed into his mind, millions of voices, shrieking, laughing, crying, begging. He felt them clawing at the inside of his skull. His scream was raw, inhuman. Claire seized his face in both hands, forcing his gaze to hers. Her hollow eyes glistened. "Then you must choose, Michael. Either seal it, and pay the price. Or open it, and lose yourself forever." Michael's body convulsed as the flood pressed over his mouth, forcing its way into his lungs. His chest screamed with fire, the lock inside hammering like a second heart about to explode. The whispers gushed through the cracks, a tide of voices clawing for release. Claire's pale hands gripped his face, her whisper urgent, ragged. "Seal it now, before it's too late." His eyes bulged, water spilling from his lips. "How?" The question thundered through his skull, but no answer came. The reflections pressed tighter, their hands sinking into his skin as though they meant to tear him apart. Each whispered the same command, "Open. Open." Michael squeezed his eyes shut, searching inward, deeper than fear, deeper than rage. For a moment, he saw it, inside his chest, the door. Flesh and bone framing its edges, hinges etched into his ribs. The crack gaped wider now, shadows writhing through, reaching with grasping fingers. His lungs convulsed. His whole body screamed to let go. "No!" he rasped in the dark of his mind. His will flared. He threw himself against the door, pressing it shut with every ounce of strength. It resisted, a hurricane pressing outward, voices shrieking, "We are freedom! We are forever!" He slammed it harder. "You don't belong to me!" The hinges groaned. The crack narrowed. But the cost came instantly. Agony shot through his veins, his body burning as though every drop of blood had turned to fire. His skin blistered, his bones ached, his muscles seized. The door was closing, but it was taking him with it. Above the water, his body arched violently, a howl tearing from his throat. Light flared beneath his skin, bright enough to shine through his chest. The reflections shrieked, recoiling, their pale forms dissolving into spray. The flood itself convulsed, waves slamming against the walls. Claire clutched him, her eyes wide. "Michael, stop! You'll kill yourself!" His scream deepened, torn between rage and despair. "Better me than the world!" The door slammed shut. A metallic clang echoed through his chest. The flood froze, still and silent. Every reflection vanished in an instant. And Michael collapsed, limp in Claire's arms. Michael lay sprawled on the nursery floor, chest heaving in shallow bursts. The flood had stilled around him, black water glassy and silent. The reflections were gone, dissolved into mist. For the first time since entering the house, there was silence. But inside him, there was nothing. He pressed a trembling hand to his sternum. The lock was there, shut, cold, heavy. but his heartbeat was faint, distant, as though it no longer belonged to him. His veins felt empty, his body hollow. Claire hovered over him, her pale face tight with grief. "You did it," she whispered. "You closed it." Michael tried to smile, but his lips cracked into a grimace. "Then, it's over?" His voice was thin, rasping. She shook her head slowly, water dripping from her hair. "Not over. Never over. You sealed it, for now. But every door requires a keeper. And the price," her voice faltered, "is you." Michael's stomach turned. "What do you mean?" She touched her own chest, the faint glow beneath her ribs flickering weakly. "I was the lock before you. I paid my life to keep it shut. Daniel before me. Others before him. Now it's you." The truth crashed over him like the flood had. His skin prickled cold, his limbs already heavy, weaker with every breath. His future, his plans, his name, his life, all slipping away, drained into the lock. He shook his head violently, though his strength barely carried the motion. "No. No, I won't stay here. I won't rot in this house." Claire's eyes softened, almost kind. "None of us wanted to stay. But the house does not care what we want. The lock must be fed. And you gave yourself to it." Michael groaned, rolling onto his side, coughing black water. He stared at the broken crib, the scattered dolls, the drawings sagging on the walls. The house felt heavier now, pressing down on him like a coffin lid. His whisper scraped out of him, raw, hopeless. "So I'm trapped?" Claire lowered her gaze. "Yes. Until the house chooses another." The silence thickened. Somewhere deep in the walls, something shifted, a faint, patient creak, like the turning of a latch. Michael slumped against the wall, his body trembling with exhaustion. Each breath rattled, shallow, distant, as though it had to travel too far to reach him. The nursery swam in shadows, the ember glow fading until only darkness remained. Claire knelt beside him, her voice soft. "It hurts less if you stop fighting." Michael's eyes flicked to her hollow face. "I'm not like you," he whispered. His chest throbbed with the heavy weight of the lock, iron and unyielding. "I'll find a way out. I'll—" The words broke. His throat clenched, his body convulsing as the lock pulsed. Pain tore through his ribs, sharp and final, forcing him to curl forward. Claire's hand touched his shoulder, gentle but cold. "We all said that." He tried to shove her away, but his limbs were weak, watery. His movements stirred ripples across the black flood that never fully drained from the house. He saw his reflection shimmer there, pale, blurred, eyes already hollowing. "No!" Tears burned his eyes. "I don't want this." From the crib came a soft sound, almost tender. A baby's coo. It twisted slowly into giggling, then into whispers, until the entire room vibrated with voices. "Stay. Stay. Stay." Michael's head sagged forward. The glow inside his chest brightened, burning through his skin, veins pulsing red. The lock had claimed him. Claire's voice trembled. "You will learn. You will hold them back. Until the letter is sent again." Michael lifted his head weakly. "And then?" Her hollow smile curved faintly. "Then it won't be your problem anymore." The walls groaned. The house exhaled. The flood receded into the floorboards, leaving silence in its wake. Michael's eyes glazed, his body sagging against the wall. His heartbeat slowed until it was nothing more than the steady pulse of the lock inside his chest. Claire faded beside him, dissolving like mist. Her duty was done. The rocking chair swayed gently, creaking in the stillness. And in the ruins of Stillwater Lane, Michael remained, hollow, silent, the new lock, waiting for the next letter to be read.